Does any member wish to give a notice of a motion? A notice of a motion. Thank you. Honorable Van Lingen.
Chairperson, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby wish to move the following motion with notice that the House calls for National Treasury to provide this House with the copies of the reports based on the studies of feasibility for nuclear energy, the financing of the nuclear energy project, as well as the assessments of alternative energy options, including nuclear energy, as mentioned in the National Treasury's report in 2013-14 and 14-15 annual reports. And that this House calls for a debate on the funding model for nuclear energy with a specific emphasis on these reports. I thank you. I so move.
Thank you. Honorable Kaula.
Honorable Chairperson, thank you. On behalf of Inkatha Freedom Party, I shall move at the next sitting that Council, noting the devastating robberies suffered by our artists and musicians through criminals who copy their music and their work illegally through piracy. Council also noting the inability and or inefficiency of the security forces and the justice system of our country to put an end to piracy in the streets, the car booths, the shops, the taverns, and everywhere else. Council must debate the issue with an intention of focusing at what strong legislative measures can be effected to assist the music and artistic industries from losing what is due to them at the hands of the parasitic criminal elements who continue to put our beloved musicians and artists in jeopardy. So says the IFP. I so move, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Makuwe.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and members. On behalf of the African National Congress, I wish to present this following notice of a motion. I hereby move that the Council, in its next sitting, debates the heavy-handed approach by the DA-controlled city of Cape Town in their plans to demolish houses of people and terminating lease agreements with residents as part of their plan to build a bus route. Judge Wesley Venko ruled in favor of the families to actively halt the city from continuing with plans to build a My City bus route through Wynberg, therefore stopping the city from demolishing more houses and issuing termination of lease orders to residents. The judge also ruled that if the city is to proceed with its plans, a meaningful public participation process must be implemented to discuss alternative routes, and that the city must pay cost for their application and for the applicant's counsel. I so move, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Mohai.
Thanks, Chairperson. Allow me to rise on a notice of motion that I shall move in the next sitting of the Council, that the House notes the shameless, racist, and nostalgic endorsement of apartheid white minority rule by the DA as expressed by its senior member of Parliament, Honorable Diane Kola Barnard. This outrageous and repulsive conduct by Honorable Kola Barnard confirm our long-held view of the DA as a refuge of white supremacy in a new democratic South Africa. How the DA deals with this issue is a greater test of its unity and cohesion, and more importantly, on its often self-proclaimed non-racial outlook in the public space. I so move.
Thank you. Honorable Smith.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I want to move the following motion with notice that this House debates the legislative constraints and red tape of the current permit system for the game trade industry. I so move.
Thank you. Honorable Isaac.
Thank you for the opportunity, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Chairperson, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move the following motion with notice. That this House debates the International Monetary Fund's downgrading of South Africa's real GDP growth, fiscal targets to 2% in 2015, 2.4% in 2016, and 3% in 2017. And how this downgrade, combined with the suggested increase of taxes, will amount to job losses and increase of poverty with huge social ramifications. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Groenewald.
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move the following motion with notice. The House debates the power of school governing bodies to recommend the appointment of heads of department, deputy principals, and principals, determine the school language policy, and determine the school admission policy. I so move.
Thank you. Aaron Pambos Pugwana.
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move the following motion with notice that, in light of the recent evacuation of Portsmouth Prison to prevent a massive outbreak of the leptospirosis disease due to a rat infestation, that the House debates the health condition, prisons and prisoners' right to conditions of detention that are consistent with human dignity, including adequate accommodation and medical treatment. I so move, Chairperson.
Thank you. Does any member wish to move a motion without notice? Honorable Ntebe.
Thank you, Chair. I stand on behalf of the African National Congress to move a notice without the motion without notice, that the Council knows that and congratulate the ruling party, the ANC, for successfully convening its 4th National General Council in Galaga Estate in Johannesburg last weekend. Further knows that the NGC gathered over 3,000 delegates from all corners of South Africa in the year of celebrating 60th anniversary of the Freedom Charter, the historic occasion of our history where the guiding document for our own government was launched. Also knows that this NGC is the culmination of a process of engagement by ANC structures, alliance partners, and other sectors of society that reinforce the culture of debate and introspection. Consistent with the tradition of our movement, we have frankly and honestly within our established traditions of criticism and self-criticism interrogated our strengths and weaknesses, our achievement and shortcomings. Also knows that over the last 3 days, the ANC undertook and critically reviewed its work towards the realization of a vision of Freedom Charter, evaluated progress in implementing resolution of the 53rd National Conference, and how it gives effect to the commitment it made in 2014 manifesto, and took some different resolve on how should it advance the emancipation of our own people in all aspects. We therefore commend the organization of Madiba for taking South Africa forward. ANC lives and ANC leads. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? In light of the objection, the motion may not be agreed with. The motion without notice will now become notice of a motion. Honorable Lond. Honorable Lond.
Oh.
Good day. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby wish to move a motion without notice that this House congratulates the Western Cape for being the leading province when it comes to land restitution and the settling of land claims in South Africa. Land restitution figures recently released by the Commission on the Restitution of Land Rights in the annual report show that the Western Cape has the country's highest number of settled land claims. The DA's success with land reform is in stark contrast to the ANC's performance in other provinces. The national government's failure rate of land reform projects is currently standing at 92%. Although land reform is a highly complex process, the ANC has failed dismally after 21 years in power. Through effective government, the Western Cape has shown it is possible by processing a record amount of land claims. Land restitution is an essential component to redress the injustices of the past. That is why it is vital for the Western Cape's effort in settling claims to be acknowledged. Thousands of South Africans in other parts of the country deserve to see similar results. Sound governance and a commitment to speed up land restitution is a focus of the DA-led Western Cape and should be acknowledged and congratulated. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? In light of the objection, the motion may not be proceeded with. The motion without notice will now become notice of a motion. Honorable Mokhosi.
Thank you, Acting Chair. I rise on behalf of the EFF to move without notice that the Council notes the outcomes of the University of Venda SRC election and not forgetting the University of Limpopo. For the first time in 35 years, SASCO lost SRC election. Majority of students have elected the EFF Student Command as their #1 for SRC. Condemn unbecoming tactics by the university management who are devising formulas at the last minute to suit SASCO without consulting student bodies when they realize that SASCO is losing support base, a clear rejection of the ANC education approach. Further note the increasing number of students at the University of Limpopo who also voted for the EFF Student Command. Despite SASCO violently disrupted the election on the first voting day when they realized numbers are not on their side. Acknowledge that despite postponing the voting so that SASCO can wait for MECs to bring T-shirts, KFC and SABC TV celebrities to convince students, the EFF remained students' preferred first choice. Further acknowledge a clear indication of an inevitable future that the EFF will win all of South Africa very soon as SRC, local government and national elections. Express gratitude to all student fighters and commissars for this victory. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? In light of the objection, the motion may not be proceeded with. The motion without notice will now become notice of a motion. Honorable Faber. Order, members. Honorable Mtileni, let's start on a correct note. You are not even recognized. You can't just stand up and... Honorable Faber, you are recognized.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move that the ANC mum on a report that it keeps losing voters for 2016. At the ANC National General Council, the main subject seemed to be the amount of voters the ANC are losing day by day to the DA. From over 1 million members, the ANC membership dropped with over 200,000 voters and members. This is a clear message that the ANC is not performing and that the people see the light of a prosperous South Africa when they will be voting for the DA in the local government elections next year. They need and deserve good services, as the DA shows in the Western Cape. I move.
Is there any objection to the motion? In light of the objection, the motion may not be proceeded with. The motion without notice will now become notice of a motion. Honorable Khai.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. On behalf of the African National Congress, I hereby move without notice that the Council, one, notes and congratulates the Masa Mabela on being South Africa's first black female Navy commander, and knows that as a girl in the village of Lady Frey, her life revolved around school and fetching firewood and water from the river, and that the 38-year-old only saw the sea for the first time when she was 18. Further note that she heard about the Navy from her friends and attended a presentation while studying a BSc in education at the university, whereby she got influenced by the pictures of people sitting in front of the big radar screens and imagined herself being there. And note that she decided not to finish her degree and joined the Navy in 1999, working her way up the ranks up the ranks, and that her appointment was about the ability to do the job rather than gender. We therefore commend and wish her all the best in her job. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? In light of the objection, the motion may not be proceeded with. The motion without notice will now become notice of a motion. Honorable Van Lingen.
Honorable Chairperson, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I wish to move a motion without notice that this House notes that it was reported that out of a roughly 1,000 suppliers, 40% of them, that's 400, were considered to be trading illegally with Buffalo City Metro because their directors included government employees. The Auditor General pointed out that this is prohibited by the Supply Chain Management process and regulations and the Municipal Finance Management Act. There's a conflict of interest, and awards were granted to councillors, employees, their close family members employed by the state amounted to 800 million. Skanda. And this is in the 2013-14 financial year in the Eastern Cape. This was made up of awards of 732 to employees, councillors and state officials, and 66 million to close family members of councillors and employees. The House debates the fairness of transparency and the cost effectiveness of procurement of municipalities in the Eastern Cape, which should guarantee effective, efficient, and economical use of state resources. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? In light of the objection, the motion may not be proceeded with. The motion without notice will now become notice of a motion. Honorable Kaula.
Ngiyathokoza sihlalo hloniphekile. On behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party, I move without notice that the House congratulates Inkatha Freedom Party on winning a by-election on Wednesday, 30 September 2015 at the Big Five municipality in KZN. The IFP captured this ward from the hands of the ANC. Winning this ward means that the IFP has also rescued the people of Big Five from the unholy marriage of the ANC-NFP alliance, as the balance of power is now in favor of the IFP. The IFP Mayor, Councillor Kampat Khumalo, sworn in on Friday, 8 October 2015, is what people of Big Five need for genuine service delivery. This is merely the beginning of big things and big upsets in 2016 local government elections. The elephant is moving steady but sure. Ziyabuyiselwa izinto kubanikazi bazo. Lukhulu liyeza liyanyelela ngo-2016. I so move.
Order, members. Is there any objection to the motion? The motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Motara.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move without notice that the Council notes with concern that a Czech fugitive, Radovan Krejcir, was apparently plotting and planning a prison break at Sonderwater Correctional Center last Sunday. Further notes that the Department of Correctional Services thwarted apparent escape plans by inmates that included Radovan Krejcir when the raid took place on Saturday after police had received a hint that Krejcir was planning to escape before his next court appearance in October. Notes that amongst the items found in Krejcir's cell were a pistol, ammunition, knife, an item that looked like a taser, a pepper spray gun, screwdriver steel blades, 10 cell phones, a memory stick, and a diary which contained the names of witnesses and investigators in his cases. Therefore, wish to call on all law enforcement agencies to investigate such kinds of cases as they undermine the intelligence and safety of our country, and that all involved should face the heavy might of the law. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? The motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Labuskaga.
Honorable Deputy Chair, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby wish to move a motion without notice that this House notes that this week, 12th to 18th of October 2015, is International Week for the Prevention of Invasive Alien Species to ensure biosecurity in South Africa. That we encourage South Africans to participate in environmental programs in all provinces to destroy, remove, and prevent invasive alien species such as famine weed and black bottle. Thank you. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? The motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Groenewald.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move the following motion without notice. The House congratulates the Springbok rugby team at the World Cup event in England, where they ended first in their pool of the play-out matches. The Springboks' next match will be in the Cup quarterfinals against Wales. We as South Africans stand behind them and wish them all the best for the rest of the tournament. And finally, bring back the William Webb Ellis World Trophy to South Africa. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? The motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. The last one will be Honorable Stock.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. On behalf of the ANC, I hereby move a motion without notice that Council notes and commend Orlando Pirates for having made it to the finals in the CAF Confederations Cup. Also notes that the Buccaneers have qualified to play in the 2015 CAF Confederation Cup final after beating Egyptians against Al Ahly 5-3 on aggregate, following a 4-3 win in Suez on Sunday night. Further notes that they are now set to meet Tunisia side, which is called Etoile du Sahel, over the 2 legs in the final, with the first leg at home on the 21st of November this year. Therefore, wish them well in their campaign to raise our flag, the South African flag, very high and the continent. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? The motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution.
Can you send the motion on Twitter?
The Secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of report of Select Committee on Trade and International Relations, additional protocol to the Trade, Development and Cooperation Agreement between the European Community and its member states of the one part and the Republic of South Africa of the other part, to take account of the accession of the Republic of Croatia to the European Union and the explanatory memorandum thereto.
Honorable Makue.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and members. The Department of Trade and Industry presented the TDCEA to include Croatia as a new member to the European Commission to the Select Committee on Trade and International Relations on the 23rd of September 2015. The purpose of this statement is to seek the approval of this august House of the NCOP for the ratification of the additional protocol to the Trade Development and Cooperation Agreement, hereinafter called the TDCA, between the European community and its member states of the one part and the Republic of South Africa of the other part, to take account of the accession of the Republic of Croatia to the European Union. The DTI continues to contribute to strengthening South Africa's trade and investment relations with key countries in the north. The Trade Development and Cooperation Agreement with the EU is 12 years into implementation and has contributed positively to bilateral economic relations supported by the 2007 deal on automobiles. As South Africa's largest trade and investment partner, relations with the European Union remain important, and greater attention will be devoted to expanding trade and investment with the recently acceded members. In its presentation to the Select Committee, the DTI drew attention to the following areas. They provided to us a background to the TDCA. They gave to us the scope of the TDCA, also informed us of the objectives of the TDCA, the benefits that that holds for South Africa, the EU enlargements, because it's not only Croatia, but that's the only one we're presenting now, but also, as we do in this government, presented to us the opportunities and the challenges, the consultations that were held, how we intend implementing this new agreement, and then I will present a conclusion to you. After rigorous scrutiny and discussion, the Select Committee unanimously agreed on presenting the TDCA for ascension by this House. Allow me to convey sincere appreciation and thanks to all Select Committee members who participated in this decision. It is my privilege and pleasure to, on behalf of the Select Committee, present the statement on the TDCA to this House for consideration and approval in terms of Section 231(2) of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, 1996. The background to the TDCA is that the SA and EU trade relations are governed by the TDCA, which provides for the establishment of a free trade area over a transitional period of 12 years. Sorry, it's a free trade agreement over a transitional period of 12 years. The TDCA is one of the most ambitious cooperation agreements ever concluded with a third country. It entered into force on the 11th of May 2004, and the full implementation of the TDCA has been effective since the end of 2012. The agreement provides for the liberalization of 95% of the EU's import from South Africa within 10 years and 86% of South Africa's imports from the EU in 12 years, which came into full effect already in 2012. Tariff cuts, as set out in SA's trades offer, are implemented by the South African Revenue Services. Agricultural quotas are administered by the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. The scope of the agreement covers about 90% of current trade between South Africa and the EU. The Select Committee did question what is happening with the remaining 10%. The agreement, however, covers a wide field of cooperation which include trade-related issues like competition and intellectual property, financial assistance and development cooperation, economic cooperation like facilitating the restructuring and modernization of the South African industry, etc. Political dialogue is also very important, and in that we note particularly human rights and support for democracy. The agreement is a legal instrument that binds South African trade relations with the EU. The TDCA has realized and improved market access for both sides. The TDCA was one of the first trade agreements signed with a developed economy, since our democracy. Since the TDTA was signed, there has been 3 EU enlargement, with the last occurring on 1st of July 2013 when Croatia joined the EU. The others are the Czech Republic, Cyprus, Estonia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta, Poland, Slovakia, and Slovenia. And in 2007, we had Bulgaria and Romania. Hence, the presentation today for ratification of the protocol to include the last EU member. The additional protocol creates a legal basis for the extension of the TDCA to Croatia. It will ensure that Croatia benefits from the TDCA and that South African exports gain preferential treatment into Croatia. The opportunities and challenges are that currently the European Union accounts for 40% of South Africa's total trade, and with the current enlargement, the EU population will increase by more than 4 million, thus providing an even larger market for South African exports. Albeit from a very small base, it is expected that the TDCA will have an overall positive impact on trade between South Africa and Croatia. South Africa's main exports to Croatia include material products, base metals, prepared foodstuffs, beverages, cement, asbestos, and vegetable products, while Croatia exports textiles, machinery, and mechanical appliances, vehicles, and wood to South Africa. Further opportunities exist for South Africa in sectors such as agricultural, machinery, transport, and electrical equipment, which South African exporters can exploit once South Africa's preferential access to Croatia comes into force. The ascension of Croatia to the European Union has the potential to create jobs in various sectors and foster economic growth. In addition, it will spur growth in overseas markets for South African-made products and generate opportunities for South African workers by creating new jobs. It is anticipated that there will be more opportunities than threats for South Africa as a result of Croatia's ascension to the European Union. Consultations were held with NETLAC, with industry representatives, with the Department of Trade and Industry, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, the Department of Justice, as said earlier, with the Department of Agriculture and Foreign Affairs, and also with the South African Revenue Services. Presidential approval has been obtained for the Minister of Trade and Industry to sign the additional protocol to include Croatia. The implementation will be done by SARS. SARS will implement the additional protocol within its current organizational framework. SARS will publish the date for the implementation of the additional protocol, and we know that South African manufacturers are already waiting anxiously on this to happen. The DTI will inform the relevant stakeholders and economic operators. There is no envisaged drastic change over the short term and medium term for South Africa's trade and economic relations with the EU as a result of Croatia's ascension. As the EU is South Africa's largest trading partner, there is a fair level of market penetration potential. The inclusion of Croatia in the TDCA creates a number of new opportunities for South African companies to expand their exports to Croatia or to establish a new export market. I thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to present this for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. I shall now put the question. The question is that the report be agreed to. In accordance with Rule 7.1, I shall first allow provinces the opportunity to make their declarations of vote, if they so wish. We shall now proceed to voting on the question. Heads of delegation will vote by pressing in favor, against, or abstain party. I now call upon provinces. Eastern Cape.
Agreed.
Free State.
We do agree, Chair. Thanks.
Gauteng.
Gauteng agrees.
KwaZulu-Natal.
KwaZulu-Natal agrees.
Limpopo,
Limpopo ya dumela modulasetulo.
Mpumalanga,
Mpumalanga agrees.
Northern Cape,
Northern Cape agrees, Chair.
Northwest,
Bokone Bophirima ya dumela.
Western Cape,
Western Cape agrees.
all provinces voted in favor. I therefore declare the report agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. The Secretary will read the second order of the day.
Consideration of rates and monetary amounts and amendment of revenue laws bill and report of Select Committee on Finance thereon.
Honorable De Pierre.
House Chair, tax revenue is an important contributor to national revenue. Hence, its growth or contraction affects numerous economic and social factors. With an increasing tax revenue, more funds are available to invest in the nation's priorities such as infrastructure, education, and health, and many other socio-economic programs that stimulate people's lives. Generating more revenue will require effective tax laws that manage the administrative aspect of tax revenue collection. Tax revenue is divided into direct and indirect taxes and has the following revenue streams or categories: personal income tax, company tax, value-added tax, VAT, fuel levy, custom duties, secondary income tax, and customs tax. The Rates and Monetary Amounts and Amendment of Revenue Laws Bill, also referred to as the Rates Bill of 2015, give legislative effect to the proposed changes to the rates and the monetary thresholds in terms of the tax proposals announced by the Minister of Finance in the budget review of 2015, as well as in the speech of the Minister of Finance when he tabled the national budget 2015. The rates bill specifically covers proposed changes to transfer duty, income tax, and customs and excise duties. Clause 2 of the rates bill ensures that all threshold amounts are replaced with new threshold amounts in respect of the acquisition of property on or after the 1st of March 2015 under Section 2 of the Transfer Duty Act. Clause 3 deals with the annual fixing of rates of normal tax in terms of Section 5, subsection 2 of the Income Tax Act, and with the rate of tax for registered micro-businesses to be set annually in terms of Section 48B(1) of the Income Tax Act. Subclauses 3 and 4 specify the dates on which these rates are proposed to come into effect for individual taxpayers and special trusts, for companies, for trusts and registered micro-businesses. There are specific dates. Clause 4 ensures that old threshold amounts are replaced with the new threshold amounts in respect of primary, secondary, and tertiary rebates under Section 6(2) of the Income Tax Act. Clause 5 raises the medical scheme fees tax credits for the first two members of a medical aid scheme from 257 rands to 270 rands each, and from 172 to 181 for each additional member. Clause 6 raises the abatement amount in respect of the provision of residential accommodation from 70,700 to 73,650. Clause 7 gives effect to the increased excise duties in terms of Section 58(1) of the Customs and Excise Act. The 2015 Rates Bill therefore ensures that the 2015 tax rate and thresholds are enacted. The Select Committee on Finance, having considered and examined the Rates and Monetary Amounts Amendment of Revenue Laws Bill B15B, National Assembly, Section 77, as referred to it and classified by the JTM as a money bill, has agreed to the bill. I must mention that when we dealt with the report, the DA reserved its position on the report. I table this report to be considered by the House. Honourable House Chair, I so move. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. I shall now put the question. The question is that the bill be agreed to. In accordance with Rule 63, I shall first allow political parties to make their declaration of vote if they so wish. We shall proceed to voting on the question. Members will vote by political parties declaration. Okay, let's do that. I missed that part. Declaration of political parties.
Honourable Chairperson, thank you again for the opportunity. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I would like to make this declaration. Considering the rates and monetary amounts and amendments of Revenues Bill, the DA would now like to table this declaration formally, and I'd ask that you pay attention and apply your mind. With the draft rates and monetary bill, as prepared by Treasury in 2014-15 financial year, it showed huge uncertainty in tax revenue performance, with gross tax revenue equaling 98.3 billion and non-tax revenue equaling 15.7 billion. Tax revenue to GDP ratio is still below the peak of revenue in 2008 and currently only stands at 25.5%. Our tax to GDP ratio is higher than most African countries, with only 8 countries that have a higher tax to GDP ratio. This indicates that our economy is not growing nearly fast enough to broaden the tax base in order to alleviate the pressure currently in place on a small pool of taxpayers. Income tax rates will be raised by 1 percentage point for all taxpayers earning more than 181,900 per annum. Unavoidably, 3.5 million South Africans who fall into this bracket will be funding government's shortfall. Travelling costs also increased to over 80 cents per litre, including the fuel and road accident fund levies. The DA's position, Chairperson, is that higher tax increases will lead to people spending less money, which in turn, of course, lowers the demand for goods because you have less money. And this impacts on services directly on job losses and, with the result, recessionary times. Without broadening the tax base, we will be unable then to grow our economy. In conclusion, therefore, the DA will not support this bill, as these increases will come at the expense to every South African who will have to pay for this government's failures. The ANC government has continuously proven its failure of being unable to steer our economy to a growth path that will one day take South Africans out of poverty and give breadwinners the opportunity to provide for their families. Chairperson, I thank you.
Thank you. Any other political party to do declarations in terms of Section 63? We'll now proceed to voting on the question. Members will vote by pressing in favor, against, or abstain buttons. If there is any member who experiences some problems, his or her vote will be recorded manually. Have all members voted? Honorable Isaac?
experiencing a problem because they don't really understand the bill in the first place. Thank you.
No. Have all members voted? The table will assist and deal with that point of Honorable Gale because it's not in the House. Have all members voted? You can be assisted and record your voting. Have all members voted? Voting will close. Could the table submit the results? No. No. Whilst trying to sort the calculation, we want to ascertain because it seems as if the issue that has been experienced by Honorable Van Lingen about the issue of Honorable Gale might not be the only one. If there is any other, because there might be some members that have pressed more than once. Honorable Julius.
There's also the possibility that there are ANC members that voted against. You can't just say that's the issue.
No.
You can't just say that.
Take your seat so that I address that. It's not the issue of the results, it's the issue of the numbers not tallying compared to people that are here. No, we know. I know where I'm seated.
Chairperson.
Order. Order, members. Order, let me first explain. Let me first explain, Honorable Julia, so that you can get it correct. We have a situation, the screen can indicate the number of people that are here. So the number must be tallied with the people that are here. And we have a practical example of the case of Honorable Van Lingen. Fortunately, she was more honest to indicate that they voted in a situation of Honorable Gale, and it's not here. So there might be another situation, but we're still tallying the numbers. Then we'll get the results quickly. Okay. Before I give you the result, there are two people that, no, I'll come to you. The honorable member next to Honorable Mukhosi, have you voted? Are you abstaining? Okay. It's Honorable MEC from the Eastern Cape. You did not vote. Yes. So, in favor, Honorable Van Lingen.
Just checking if the deputy minister voted because they're not part of the delegates from the provinces.
She
so
did not vote.
They mustn't vote.
Yeah, she did not vote. Yeah. In favor is 27, against 16, abstention is 3. The majority of members voted in favor. I therefore declare the bill agreed to in terms of section 75. Order, members. I therefore declare the bill as agreed to in terms of section 75 of the Constitution. Honorable Mtileni.
House Chairperson, I thought maybe if maybe you were stuck, we could rather go to maybe sudden death, and you'll be the one to do the last one.
That is not a point of order. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, we now come to the subject for discussion as printed in the order paper. I'll invite the Deputy Minister of Rural Development and Land Reform, Honorable Mashiko Dlamini.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My greetings to the honorable House members of the NCOP, representatives of women organizations and cooperatives who are present in the gallery, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for affording me the opportunity to address you on this very important matter in this August House this afternoon. Chairperson, today is one of the most significant days in our annual calendar where we meet to commemorate the rural women internationally, where we discuss progress made by our government in transforming the rural economy through the emancipation of women. We need to reflect on global treaties, policies, and initiatives that assist in accelerating this rural women transformation agenda. Chairperson, I believe that as such, as it is imperative to highlight the good stories that the ruling party has achieved in women empowerment through agricultural programs, poverty alleviation initiatives, and food security activities across the nation. We need to reflect on the challenges that most rural women still face. The Department of Rural Development and Land Reform mandate is to ensure that women equitably have access and control to land in order to attain sustainable livelihood, decent work, and continue social and economic advancement in rural areas and farms. The ANC-NGC last week put an emphasis on these matters and further resolved that the women across the country must be prioritized in all government initiatives and programs aimed at their development and economic emancipation, and that there must be targeted allocation for women on land. Ladies and gentlemen, the mandate and the status quo with regard to rural women is that government must take significant strides to ensure that women must have access to land in their own right to deal with their patriarchal challenges that they still face. This is an international clarion call made in various conferences and seminars organized by women. Article 14 of the Convention of Elimination of All Forms of Violence Against Women states that parties should take into account the particular problem of women and the important role they play in survival of their families, including their contribution to the economy and their participation in rural development. The Beijing Platform of Action Critical Area 1 reiterate the need to address feminization of poverty by ensuring that women access resources and services, while critical area 6 reiterate the considerable differences in women and men and men's access to opportunities to exert power over economic structure, and recommends redress, though true amongst others, by promoting women economic self-reliance, including access to employment, prioritize working conditions, and control over economic resources, land, capital, and technology. The idea of honoring the rural women with a special day was put forward at the 4th World Conference on Women in Beijing in China in 1995. It was suggested that in October 15, be celebrated as World Rural Women's Day, which is one of the events of World Food Day. I must also indicate that the World Rural Women's Congress is convened every 4th year, and the first World Congress of Rural Women was held in Australia in 1994, followed by the second one and the third one, World Congress of the Rural Women in the United States in 1998, and Spain in 2002, and the South African hosted the 4th in Durban in 2007. Therefore, it was fairly observed on the 15th of October 2008 and recognized the role of rural women, including indigenous women, in enhancing agricultural and rural development, improving food security, and eradicating rural poverty. Women were mobilized and constituted an organized called Women in Agriculture and Rural Development, which is called WAD. A declaration emerged from this Congress, and this reflection that our country is committed in changing the lives of the most vulnerable, meaning rural women. Almost some of the resolution was to ensure that government must have a special focus on women empowerment, since the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform has been very instrumental in championing this resolution through vigorous policies development such as the Esther Land Tenure Land Reform Restitution. The 5th Congress was then held in India last year. During United Nations Convention on the Status of Women in 2012, the main theme was on empowerment on rural women. South Africa participated successfully in debating, showcasing how we transform the lives of rural women. Moreover, side events were held by South Africa, and our women in arts and craft also display how their skills has managed to elevate poverty and made them players in the rural socio-economic transformation and empowerment. The ruling party's Polokwane resolution of the 2007 endorsed the extent mandated the department to give special focus on rural areas. Our president, the Honorable J.G. Zuma, during his recent visit to the United Nations, reaffirmed South Africa's government commitment in fostering and expediting the true economic transformation agenda. He further made reference to women empowerment and gender equality as a priority in realizing our country's economic transformation agenda. One of our department's mandate was further emphasized during the State of the Nation address by the Honorable President of South Africa, which is to develop a comprehensive rural development program in order to elevate poverty, create jobs, transform the rural space, thus improve our country's economic growth rate. The department further implements the CRDP through a number of initiatives and in various branches such as the REIT, land reform and restitution. Our footprint over the progress regarding the redistribution of agricultural land in South Africa, 82 million from 1994 to June 2015, is such that there are 4.5 million hectares under the land redistribution through 5,199 projects, benefiting 235,732 beneficiaries, of which 24% of that are women. 33,111 are youth, and 678 are people with disabilities. From 2009 to June 2015, there are 1.5 million hectares under land redistribution through 1,482 projects, benefiting 20,124 beneficiaries, of which 8,300, which forms 41%, are women. 6,149 are youth, and 49 are people with disabilities. Siyakuba. These statistics suggest that there is 50% improvement from 24% to 41% in benefiting women under this program in a form of either groups, individuals, Black Image farmers obtain grants as well as land acquired under leasehold. Regarding recapitalization and development, out of 1,496 projects in 2009 to 2015, out of 1.4 million hectares, there were 28,497 beneficiaries who benefited from 5,473 jobs created, and 2,523 were women, and out of the 2,202 farmers trained and 1,207 were women. The department is committed to have further vigorous intervention to ensure that women participate meaningfully across all of our programs. Chairperson, our key responsibility in the Department is rural development, which has got various programs and projects such as Women in Design, Art and Craft, Youth Development Program, creation of sustainable enterprise in agri-parks and others. All these are designed to transform the rural space and ensure sustainable livelihood. On gender-based violence, this demon called gender-based violence is prevalent due to patriarchal and traditional stereotypes, in particularly in rural areas. For example, ukuthwala, which violates the socio-economic development of a young girl and stifles their education and violates the Children's Act. The widows that are chased away from their land by chiefs once their husband passed away also violate their rights as beneficiaries and deprive their children of the right to shelter endorsed by the legislation frameworks. Let it be known that I am first and foremost a woman. Every woman was once a girl. It is these girls, many of whom I have seen in these most rural areas. They reassured me that their voice needs to be carried through mountains and valleys for their voice to be heard. They are not statistics, but broken women in the making who will carry the baton where we would have left off in this parliament and in all the sectors where we find ourselves. These young women, incubators of our nations, continued, are barriers of hopes that need to be engraved in our fight, where we gather to commemorate important days such as International Rural Women's Day. The plight of justice and true emancipation should not lose ground, but be accelerated and reinforced today more than ever before. This is why the UNCSW 2016 will again give priority to the agreed upon inclusion of 2013 on the elimination, prevention of all forms of violence against women and girls of 2013, intensifying the strides on commitment taken by member states to address this scourge. The department has also established the Women's Forum for level 2 to 12 and Women in the Senior Management Forum. In that, the department has institutionalized transformation at workplace and in rendering services in rural areas in line with sustainable development and women empowerment. In order to ensure dialogue on gender considerations, the Men's Forum is being facilitated to enable the department to institutionalize gender equality and internally and in communities they serve. Honorable Chairperson, in keeping our eyes on the prize, we should remain mindful of the thematic areas we have chosen and committed to making this centenary. The Women's Day theme for this year was a centenary of working together towards sustainable women empowerment and gender equity. Another important theme I wish to highlight to you is this conference theme, which is on recognizing the role of women in agriculture, food security, and rural development. In committing to revising the legacy of the 1913 Native Land Act, the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform has positioned itself to soldier on in addressing the social, spatial, and economic injustices of that abominable law of June 1913 and its adverse impact on the black majority, with specific reference to women and our spatial economy. Colonial and apartheid geography creates three spatial configurations across our country. The urban area, a commercial farming area that were designated as white enclave, and the Bantustan or so-called homelands that were designed for African and later areas for Asians and colored were established. In the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform, we have policies to deal with all these injustices of the apartheid era. Apartheid did set the basis for the alienation of black majority from the land of their birth, denial of freedom of movement, past laws, forced removal, and land degradation. The impact of this marginalized black is described by the National Planning Commission Diagnostic Report of 2011 as a patchwork of many states created on the country's most barren land, with borders generally drawn and leave out any viable economic areas. The effect of his racial segregation legislation was to de-agrarianize black people and create a rural periphery, a labor reserve, by forcing people off the land and into urban labor market. Until today, they rely on wage or remittances. Today, only 4% of the rural poorest of South Africa derive their income from agriculture, instead of over 20%, as is the case in other developing countries. African women are known as rocks. African folktale narrates how women are capable of holding blades on the sharp end and coming together in spite of geographical and racial divide to march on towards a dispensation of hope. This was evidenced during the March of 1956, where 20,000 women marched to the Union Building, defying the apartheid pass law. In South Africa's rural area, women access the land was limited by their gender and social position in the community. Women worked on agricultural production in addition to being head of household, caring for children and maintaining the household. Customary laws also prevented women from owning land. For many years, a woman was not able to get effective land right without the permission of her husband or a guidance. Let's we not forget, as we mark International Rural Women's Day, we remain mindful of the fact that we are not alone in the struggle for the right of women, women empowerment, and gender equality. These are experienced globally and are more pronounced in developing and emerging economies. Life of farms, reservation, and marginalized urban and peri-urban areas remain a challenge, with land inaccessibility and tenure insecurity being key contributors to hardship experienced. This is the picture we intend changing with the resolution of the 2015 NGC. At the dawn of the democracy during the 1995, the fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing, we declared, among others, to eradicate poverty through sustainable economic growth, social development, environment protection, and social justice. This was to be based on people-centered development, social and economic opportunities for women, and to get both men and women involved as agents and beneficiaries of such development. Furthermore, in 2010, the African Union Commission endorsed a framework and guideline on land policy in Africa that sought to strengthen land rights, enhance productivity, and secure livelihood. The framework and policy guideline states that the tenure reform and land redistribution will improve access to land and confer security to vulnerable groups, especially women, who constitute most of the urban and rural poor. This will break the cycle of dependency and institutionalize the poverty amongst women and the vulnerable people of South Africa. Honorable Chairperson, give me but a moment to touch on agriculture. Agriculture is a very important economic activity in that a substantial number of persons involved are women. The recent agricultural household study by State South Africa that drew from the 2011 census show that almost 2.9 million South African households are engaged in agriculture. Of these households, about 52% are male-headed families and approximately 47% are female-headed households. Although the overall picture shows that most households engaged in agriculture are males, it is important to note that in the 4 provinces with the most households engaged in agriculture, it is women-headed households that are in the majority. These provinces are KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga, and Limpopo, which constitute the 35% of all households engaged in agriculture here in South Africa. This is valuable information as it begins to give indication on where we should target our land reform and land development support program, and whom among those do we need to target in various provinces, and how women-headed households are equitably provided for. Chairperson, I just want to indicate that today we should guide us in our resoluteness towards active engagement, the reverse of our brutal historical legacy, and the critical development benefiting the women's liberation and the emancipation of men can bring for us. We need to ensure that the 50-50 representation is realized in all our programs, and to ensure effective emancipation and empowerment of women in rural areas. 50-50 and more in favor of women. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Minister. Let me take this opportunity and indicate to those that will be going to the podium for the first time that on your right, there is time. So the time that has been allocated to you, you will see it while it's in the podium, to those that will be going for the first time. The next speaker is Honorable Mvenya.
Enkosi Honorable Chair, nivile ke uba i-maiden speech anithethi noba ndithi nawunyamezela ngoba i-maiden speech.
Thetha ma.
Honorable Chair, ndiyavuya kakhulu uba ndithi xa ndiqala ukuza apha ndizothetha ngomama bakuthi, omama basezilalini, ngoba mna ndingwaseNgqamakwe, Eastern Cape, kwaye ndisahlala pha ezilalini. Into ezawundimkisa ndiyofuna indlu eBhayi kuxa kuthe kwaphatha i-DA pha eNelson Mandela Bay. Mna ke njenge-rural girl ndandisikha amanzi emlanjeni for upheka, mhlambe izitya, ndihlambe nabantwana yonke into. Kodwa ngoku njengoba ndiyi-rural woman ndisababona oomama besikha amanzi, abanye beqhuba iimpumbuzi ngeKiriva emlanjeni, kutshisa okanye kunetha. Ngoba bona abakho fortunate njengabanye bethu abakwaziyo bona ukuyothenga amatanki ngoba they can afford. Umzekelo pha eQonce, Honorable Chair, a few kilometers from a legislature, kukho i-co-op pha ekuthiwa yiSophakama Sonke. Ya-establishwa ngo-2004, iyalima. 2007, yawucela ku-social development uba ikhe incediswe ifumane irrigation scheme for unkcenkceshela ngoba amanzi akude asezantsi. Kunanamhlanje ayikenzeki loo nto leyo. Imali bayifumana kodwa zange yenze into ekwakufanele bayenzile yehla ngomlenze. Yenziwa i-investigation. Unfortunately, abantu aba-implicated zange kubekho consequences kubo. Ababamama bapha babheke ezantsi bawukha amanzi for ukugcwalisa itanki every week benyuka iqhina. And ngelishwa, Honorable Chair, u-MEC ka-social development kamnando khoyo apho Honorable Slwayi uyayazi loo nto leyo, wayifumana ileta ngoMeyi, ngoku October akho nto yenzekileyo. Kodwa sithi we care for abafazi basezilalini, sithi we develop abafazi basezilalini. Iphi fairness xa kunjalo, xa ukusukela ngo-2004 uyotsho ngo-2015 kusekho amamama bakha amanzi kugcwalisa amatanki. Into basimane into esigqame ngayo ke kuba sibize umama sithi sine events zomama sibakhwelise sibase kufike kuthethwe batye bahambe. That's not enough for umama sezilalini ku development in terms of development. Kwakhona as a rural girl mna benikade ndithatha ibhekile bheke emasimini ndisekumama okanye ndisekutata emasimini kulinywa. Amasimi ngoku alele ngoba ootata nomama bemkile bofuna imisebenzi like komarikana sifuna itractor. Ikhona ke isimanga esikhe senzeka kwafika itractor kwafika iicamera ze-TV kwafika kwagqithiswa zathula itractor zabekwa kwiproject emveni koba kumke i-TV zalayisha itractor zaphinda zemka zobekwa kwenye indawo. Yabona ke xa ungenayo itractor kutsho ukuthi awuzukwazi ulima. And umuntu obethakalayo ngumuntu ongumama xa kungakho kutya ngoba thina pha Eastern Cape sixhomekeke ku-agriculture for food security. Umuntu ochaphazela ngumama ngoba umyeni xa elambile uthi kujwa ntoni nkosikazi. Umntwana xa elambile uthi mama nilambile. I-in-laws zithi molokazana akho nto ishushu na. Yiyo le nto uzawufika omama bedwelile estrateni bethengisa ifruit for uba bazofundisa abantwana babo. Kwelishwa kuzofika umasipala athi uphula i-bylaws akamlungiselelanga nendawo amakathengise kuyo achithe ke loo fruit basuswe pha estrateni besuswa ngumuntu uphofu oyaziba naye ufundiswe ngale fruit yalo mama. Ibe wesi ke xa ungumama sezilalini uzofundisa umntana nzima kwezinye areas like oBizana usebenza nzima usumntana wakho ku-mad school xa iphuma ku-mad school akwapha uzawufumana khona umsebenzi uphinda aphelele pha ezilalini. And ngelishwa lasezilalini inhlungu into uba uzalelwa kwi-social grant khulisa abantwana bakho ku-social grant okokoko kuloo cycle life ye-social grant. Kanti ke sifuna ikhantri apho i-social grant izawusetyenziswa njenge-safety net kuphela uze wena ukwazi into yobana noba uzalelwe kumzo onjani ondawoni noko wena ufumane opportunities khona ukuze umama wakho lo ukusebenza enzima for ukufundisa aziqhayise athi naziya iziqhamo zokubethwa kwam zimpepho imimoya yiyo yonke nezitshingitshane estrateni ndifundisa lo mntana. Leyo yi-freedom that you can use. Ngokuya ilirhutla ye-ANC yayipasisa into ethi kuzawubakho rural development kwade kwatshintsha igama le-department kwaye kuba ngu-Department of Agriculture kodwa ngu-rural development. Ndonwaba gqitha ndaqomba heke ngoku thina pha ezilani ngoba rural development ithetha ukuthi sizawutshintsha ilife yethu ifane neyaku-urban areas. Hayi kanti ama-comrade awayiqondi kakuhle le nto ithi rural development. Because say understand rural development buthetha ntoni akufanelekanga kubekho amafama athatha i-Department of Roads ayisecourt ngenxa indlela azikho kuba xa ungenayo indlela ungumfama ukwazi ukuba uyoricha iimarket zakho. Ngxaki ngu-IGR. No IGR, no rural development. Ayicingi yenzeke loo nto leyo. Honorable Chair, 2015 1 o'clock ekuseni ityhu inde yomama notata bayokwamkela i-social grant yabo ityhwinde ngo-1 ekuseni. Ku-rural development ayikwazi into yobeni ibe khona into enjalo ngoba ifanele uba xa ngu-rural development aba bantu okokuqala baqesha istallion for ukuya phaa ebusuku baleqa uba ithi nkqe imali ifike babe sebephayana bazawugrosa basogqiba babhatale for udelivarisha laa grocery yabo. Kanti kuba sithi ngu-rural development fanele uba ezaa shops zindala ziphaa zitshintshiwe zifakelwe o-ATM, zine-grocery spa uyamfumana phaa, utsho uthenge apha ungabi nayo imali yokudilivarisha ukutya oku kuthengileyo, ukwazi useyiva nawe ube nemali. Le nto ivele iphele ke laa mali ingakhange yenze nto. Rural development akathethi izi-projects nazi-co-ops, ayiyo loo nto. Rural development yile nto siyifunayo ke thina, sifuna ukuzibona sifana nabamama basezilokishini kwendlela sihleli ngayo phaa ezilalini. Itepu ivule iphuma amanzi, itrektha ifumaneke, iitrektha ziye kufunyanwa zii-officials zee-departments nooceba kuphela. Eklinikhi ukwazi ukuba iklinikhi ikhona ezilalini, ukwazi ubelekela ezilalini. Ungaqeshi imoto nge-600 for uyobelekela esibhedlele. Education kwi-higher standard ezilalini, uzokutsho ukwazi uba siphucuke abantwana basezilalini bazokwazi ufumana imisebenzi. Ngelishwa ke, better life for some, not for all. Ezilalini kusentlango, akho fairness, akho freedom, akho opportunity. Ingxaki ke yinto ubana njengoba sisazi njengomama babazimbokodo, sibazi babazimbokodo xa kuzawuvotwa, bakhampeyine, kuziwe phaa kubo, izikipha zibekwa phaa koomama, i-food parcels zibekwa phaa koomama kuba bayaziwa uba bazi-food parcels, bazimbokodo. Amama ke basezilalini banayo i-potential yokukhulisa i-economy yaseMzantsi Afrika ngoba omama basezilalini bayafuya bathengise, bayasenga bathengise, bafundise abantwana babo kuba laa nto yenza into yobana i-generation elandelayo ikwazi usurviva. Into abayifunayo zii-opportunities. Yabona ke thina ke i-CDA sasupporta zonke iinzame ezinothi zenziwe ngurhulumente ezinokwenza into yobana oomama basezilalini bazive bengabalapha eMzantsi Afrika. Ndiyo le nto sibhale ileta sizithumele ko-MEC Sihlwayi singabuyi impendulo. Into uba sizama usapota le nto and into uba siyayazi uba oomama bayi-backbone of the nation. Msinyane ke i-NGC ke ingqinile uba amanani e-ANC ehlile. Loo nto ke ithetha ukuthi sizawukhawuleza siyozi-implement ezi policies ze-DA zi-based kwi-values zika-fairness, freedom and opportunities. And i-NGC ingqinile into yobana i-policies ezigudi azi-implementeki. Yile nto ke izawusikhaleza sisondele siyotshintsha ezinto siyozi-implementa thina i-policies. Enkosi, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. Mphathi welitiko letenhlalakahle eMpuma Koloni, Mhlonishwa Sihlwayi.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, honorable ministers and deputy ministers, colleagues and honorable MECs, esteemed traditional leaders, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's an afternoon. Good afternoon. When a woman is hungry, she says, roast something for the children that they might eat. That's a Ashanti proverb, trying to clarify the role of a woman in a family, in a society, and in a nation. We are here together to celebrate these days to reflect on the connectivity of the people of the world. The month of October is both a social development month and a transport month. It is during this month that nationally and internationally, the people of the world celebrate the milestones together. The former president of the African National Congress, Dr. Alfred Bitini Xuma Wasengcobo, Eastern Cape, appeared in the BBC interview clarifying the role of South Africa within the continent and the world. We are here, open quote, we are here to fight for the world democracy. We want the world to know, close quote. Those were the African claims which resembles our current constitution of the Republic of South Africa in many ways, which contains both political and socio-economic rights, which is a progressive trend that started in 1943. formulating the People's Program, the Freedom Charter. Just want to highlight few issues, which are the events that we've managed to come together with the global community. 1st October 2015 is the International Day for Older Persons. 2nd October is the International Day of Non-Violence. 5th October is the World Teachers' Day. 10 October is World Mental Health Day. 11 October is the International Day of the Girl Child. The 15th of October is the International Day of Rural Women. 16 October is World Food Day. 17 October is the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty. The 24th of October is the World Development Information Day, to name but a few. We celebrate these days because we believe we are one. Honorable Chair, in 1955, the Congress of the People Freedom Charter was adopted by the people who came from all over our countries, towns and rural areas and farms and villages. They did that because the architect of the apartheid was up in arms to diffuse and divide the country, which was a sad moment of our lives. The preamble of the charter says, open quote, South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. It then clarifies who should own the land. It clarifies who needs to be protected, which is the peasant. It clarifies who needs to be freed. It clarifies who needs to be liberated. The ANC is an architect of a better life for all, and it continues to do so. Chairperson, it is proper to clarify that in all our endeavors as a country and as government and as the Eastern Cape, ours is to respect the supreme law, which clarifies how we should heal the divisions that were caused by our former number ones, the Nationalist Party and the Democratic Party, which is the Democratic Party today. Chair, we aspire that the 2063 Africa Agenda, we want to adhere to those as amongst the democratic principles of our country and of our world. It is a people-centered and a caring agenda. It puts children first, it puts women first, and empower them and play their rightful role in all spheres of life. There's full gender equality in all spheres of our participation and our contribution and our beneficiaries of our land. It has engaged and empowered our youth. Rural women will have access to productive assets, including land, credit inputs, and financial services. Ndithetha ngoNombile ke, ndithetha ngoNotamile, ndithetha ngabo bonke abamama babesiphekela imingqusho, besenzela imifino, silumela xa sibheka esikolweni. Those today are able to present their case within the banks because they are bankable, because the government have freed them, which is a human rights and the tradition of the African National Congress. They own farms, they own cattle, they are employers of many people. They are selling milk, they are having vegetables, and they are selling them in big retail shops. They themselves, they are selling in many schools. They've got bakeries, which they take to many of the schools and feed our children. Omama basezilalini bayaqhuba namhlanje. A girl child, uSipho Sethu, is born today in a farming community, eKomga, eGreat Khai, uMasipala waseMathole. Unazo opportunities today, akanazo kwezinye indawo. uSipho sonke is free. uSipho sonke uhamba ngenyawo xa esikolweni. Lo rhulumente wamakhaya noRhulumente wephondo ukwazile ukumnikezela imoto yokumsa esikolweni afika amnike ukutya xa efikile esikolweni. Zisekhona ingxaki kodwa uhulumente uzijongile. Akakho uhulumente wayejonge ingxaki zikaSipho Sethu ngaphandle uba wayejonge inkululeko kaBenevictor ohlala eSummerstrand kwindawo yabantu abaphucukileyo eBhayi eNelson Mandela. We talk about the most affected girl oseNtabankulu eTsholomunqa eJogqabe eLusikisiki eBizana ePort St John's eNgquza, the most rural areas in the Eastern Cape. Siyatsho ke sithi wohlukile lo mntana kubantu abahlala kwi-peri-urban areas. Chairperson, this year the Eastern Cape have facilitated an Africa Women's Conference. The world was in the Eastern Cape for a week, clarifying the issues and the role of women, clarifying the strength and the weaknesses of a woman. The conference was instrumental in seeking to give insights on how the women of Africa characterize the current plight of women and visage for the continent, and pragmatic programs that respond to the plight of women as characterized by delegates. Chairman, studies showed in that conference that women are majority in the African continent. More than 400 cooperatives, which is majority in the Department of Social Development in the Eastern Cape, came together to map a way forward on the resolution of that conference. And they clarified that they need a center that is going to address the skills development for women to participate in the procurement reforms of the country. As I speak now, beginning of November, 6 commodities will be starting training on skills development in that center at Palmerton at Lusikisiki, the most rural area in our province. They will participate in the agriculture, piggery, poultry, cleaning services, catering, bepheka imingqusho neziqwashumbe nezigwampa besondla abantu belilizwe as one of the tourist areas in our motherland. The Eastern Cape province is partnership with other stakeholders and has championed the establishment of the center, which serves as a hub and a vehicle to ensure that women are marketable and women are bankable. One of the resolutions of the conference was that a need for establishing the Development Bank of Women, which the Eastern Cape will travel to the other countries that have showed best practices in the conference. In conclusion, Chairperson, the statistics clarifies who is the most affected in the country, and the woman is the most victim. It then clarifies who is the strategic manager in the family who build the family. And again, it says it's a woman, it's a wife to the husband, it's a loved one to the boyfriend. Amongst other issues, Chair, is that there are very clear challenges that the country is confronted with. The struggle that experienced by widows, the stealing of their cattle, the goats, their sheep by farmers, the bosses, the killing of women with a perception that they are gamagwicha because ebababi ebusweni kuphenge phela ipink petal, ebabeyithambisa ipowder. The very clear huge gender-based violence which emanates from family conflicts, emakhaya. The president of the ANC, Uxuma, is asking a question: what an African girl can do. Charlotte Manye Mahope Makleke spoke about the social conditions of an African and a rural woman in 1930. He addressed a conference of European and Bantu Christian Student Association at Forte, June, July 1930. Open quote. The woman, the wife, is the keystone of the household. She holds a position of supreme importance because she's the real family. She's a queen of the home. She's the inspiration of her family. She then clarifies that why there's a huge gender-based violence is because there's a clear family dysfunctionality and a clear family disintegration. Amakhaya, awakho, into ekhoyo yimizi, abantu abadala, abakho, abantu abadala baninzi, abantu abangekhoyo ngabazali. Thank you very much, Chairperson, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Ilunga lehloniphekile lalendlu umkhandlu wetifundza umhlonishwa Sefako.
Honorable Chair, honorable members, honorable deputy ministers, MECs present here, members of SALCA, distinguished guests, our viewers at home, it is indeed a great pleasure to be given this opportunity to participate in today's debate. This is the best time when the most important and the greatest organizations just emerged from its successful, the NGC, the African National Congress. It is equally an important time for celebrating the 60th years of our Freedom Charter. Allow me, Honorable Chair, to salute the women of the world, the women of Africa, the women of our beloved country, South Africa. Let me recognize those that are unknown. Bomme, ko magaeng, bao ba sa tlhageleng, mo dipampiring, bao ba sa itsewieng. Mme karolo e ba e tshamekileng e le e masisi. Gagolo jang e le bomme ba Afrika, e leng Afrika Borwa. Bomme ba reng mmangwana ke o tshwarang thipa ka fo bogaleng. Ga se o mongwe le o mongwe fela yo re ka mmitsang mmangwana. E sengwe tla reng ga ngwana a lla a ba mo tlakisa ka mbamba gongwe a mo tlakisa ka biri. Ya re ngwana ga a gola e be e le letagwa. Ke go leboge tota ke gopole dikwankwetla tsa bomme ba kileng ba e tshwara ka fo bogaleng mo malobeng. Dikgapa di tshwana le bo Lillian Ngoyi, bo Ruth First, bo Ruth Segomotsi Mompati, bomme ba tshwana le bo Dora Tamani. Gagapa e rileng ganna a eme bomme kopano a bone ka lefoko gone mo Kapa mo. A re le buletse dikgoro. E ne le kgagapa ya mme yo na kgona gore a organize o tsereng dikarolo mo megwantong ya go lwela gore dijo di be teng morago ga ntwa ya bobedi ya lefatshe. Bomme ba re ka bua ka bone gwa tlala seatla ba dirile maloba le jwale re santse re ba bona. Mme yalo e le maloko African National Congress ebile gape ba bangwe bone e le makomanisi ka fo ra leboga. Ga re tsena mo Afrika Borwa re ka re the socio-economic development of South Africa is indeed characterized by contradictions. We had South Africa that was developed, and the bulk of it been undeveloped. And the undeveloped one is where the rural majorities has been forcefully removed and crowded in those particular areas. The most that were suffering were none other than the women. But they fought the way out to ensure that under such critical conditions, they were able to come up with plans, utilizing the space that is there for production. Production not for profit, as the capitalists are doing, but for production for survival. They managed to send their sons and daughters, who of them are professors, doctors. That is the major role that they played, indeed, in the socio-economic development. We are proud of them. They played an important role, of course, in crafting even some, of course, also even prior to the People's Congress that was held in Cape Town. There was the Women's Charter. Those women were led by the African National Congress. They were the women from the African National Congress. We are proud of. Today we'll see an individual that coming from the organizations of the Blue, who is dreaming that he can bring the Groot crocodile from the grave and come and do anything better than what the women has been struggling for. That is an empty dream. It will never happen. Let me touch maybe to indicate that there is no way that we can discuss about the socio-economic, divorcing it from politics. We rather invite the politics and call it the political, socio-economic, bringing culture and art. Women of the world rise to the highest through the hardship of imperialism and colonialism, through the hardship of religion, of course, which played an enormous role in subjecting women to minors. The women managed to rise above all the fetters and unchain themselves from the authorities of patriarchy. Today we are saying we are proud because of the African National Congress, which of course, under the new dispensations, women of Africa, women of South Africa, are today able to own the properties. They were subjected to minors. When you go to the financial institutions, they will have to go all out and grab any man who can come and sign on behalf because he was a minor. The ANC lead, the ANC live. It's taking this democracy forward. We thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Kaula.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Deputy Minister, colleagues, on Sunday, the 11th of October 2015, just last Sunday, I had a community meeting with the people of Kwaqigo in Mandlalati and Inkosi P. Gabele, Ngasana, at the banks of Umkomazi River. I witnessed donkeys with 20-liter water containers at the back from Umkomazi River to the various homesteads in the area. To us in the IFP, rural plight of the people in rural areas is not just fantasy. It is what we live. I personally come from Umgubo area in KwaShlongwa under Umzumbe municipality, where I was born and bred. That is where my children are growing up. My mother was a subsistence farmer of Amadumbe, Umbila, Amatanga, and Umzumbe beans. From the sale of these items, she was able to send all my 4 brothers and my 5 sisters to school. By the way, all 10 of us were born at home in KwaShlongwa, sometimes with legal assistance of Sister Kumbi from Morrison's Clinic in Umzumbe. Not a single one of my 9 siblings, including myself, was born in hospital or clinic. This is a life typical of the struggles of rural women in South Africa. When fathers and husbands had to go and be away for days, for weeks, for months, for years in the big cities in Durban and Johannesburg, these women had to, and still have to, remain strong and resolute as both the father figures and mother figures of the households. It is a pity that 21 years into our democracy in the country, very little yet has changed to give meaning to democracy for rural women. Of course, the IFP acknowledges that most of the sufferings of rural women that they have to endure is historical and an imposition of colonialism and later apartheid. But these women have started voting for a better, non-sexist, non-racial government like everybody else from 1994 up to now. But still there is no piped water, no electricity, no black surface roads, schools have no computer rooms, no libraries, no laboratories. In some instances, mud schools and schooling under a tree still remains the order of the day. Rivers continue to swallow their loved ones on rainy seasons as there are no bridges to go across. Long distances to schools for their children. No hope for a better life in the area for their children as opportunities are only found in the cities. Town life continues to break their families when children migrate to the cities and get introduced to new lifestyles they are not used to. The list is endless. This is the plight of a rural woman. Why is the pace to change their lives so slow? It is greed of those who are in power. A lot of government resources get pocketed and undue diligence serve the purpose and objectives of the manipulators of the system and programs. Cronism continues to undermine government programs. Actually, 2 weeks ago, the Honorable Minister of Communications was at Umuzwabantu at KwaMac in Harding. She was taken through a tour of the area. She herself was appalled at the poor state of workmanship of the state of low-cost housing that is provided to the people of KwaMac by the municipality. Poor service delivery has become a norm. I appeal to this House to intensify our oversight efforts in monitoring government programs. Honorable Chairperson, as a ruling party, the ANC, the cancer that is in the ANC does not only affect the members of the ANC, but it affects South Africa in general. The ANC must learn to listen to voices of reason. It is a pity that those who speak reason and justice are beginning to be silenced. There is too much power in the secretaries of the regions in the ANC. There is too much power in the secretaries of the provinces in the ANC. They control government tenders in municipalities and provinces. This is the cancer that is killing rural development. Honorable Chairperson, the people of KwaZulu-Natal still draw some pride in the solid foundations and solid backgrounds laid into that province of KwaZulu-Natal by the IFP. It was a government of integrity, sans corruption, sans nepotism, sans chronism, a government of the people, for the people, by the people. In conclusion, Honorable Chairperson, I do want to say, Honorable Deputy Minister, angiyazi mina inkosi KwaZulu-Natal eyake yaxosha nakwamanye ama-province umuntu wesifazane ofelwe yindoda ngoba nakuthiwa akasenayo indoda. I still have to say one. Amakhosi ayabahlonipha abantu besifazane, especially in KwaZulu where I come from. Lastly, I do want to leave you, Chairperson, with the poem by Everett Stander. I speak for the bush, you speak for the civilized. Will you hear me? I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Dikhale.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Honorable Members, Special Delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Chairperson, the date 13 October is a very significant date in as far as change of mind is concerned in the history of mankind. The notable change of mind that occurred on this day was in 1943 during the World War II, when the new government of Italy under General Pietro Badoglio changed sides to the Allies and declared war on Nazi Germany. This was the beginning of the end of the war, as the Axis powers were now disintegrating. As we are aware, at the end of the World War II, the victorious powers established the United Nations organizations that was to ensure that the world does not experience such a war ever again. Today, the United Nations, as we know it, is at the forefront of fighting and eradicating all kinds of wars, including the socio-economic ones. Just last month, in September 2015, the United Nations Summit of Member States adopted the 17 new Sustainable Development Goals, and South Africa was part and signatory to this. During this summit, the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon had this to say, and I quote, "The new Sustainable Development Goals have gender equality and women's empowerment at their core and include a target to double the agricultural productivity and incomes of small-scale food producers, in particular women. Indeed, rural women are critical to the success of almost all of the 17 SDGs," close quote. As the ANC and South Africa, we could not agree with him more. This is so because as much as we believed in the Millennium Development Goals, we are not oblivious to the fact that the 8 MDGs fail to consider the root causes of poverty and overlook gender inequality, as well as the holistic nature of development. The goals, for example, did not specifically address economic development. Also, while the MDGs in the theory apply to all countries, in reality they were considered targets for poor countries to achieve with finance from wealthy states. Conversely, every country is expected to work towards achieving the SDGs. Within the SDGs are 169 targets to put a bit of meat on the bones. Targets under Goal 1, for example, include reducing by at least half the number of people living in poverty by 2030 and eradicating extreme poverty, people living on less than $1 a day. Under Goal 5, there is a target of eliminating violence against women, while Goal 16 has a target to promote the rule of law and equal access to justice. All these have women as a common denominator, hence Ban Ki-moon's assertion that the new Sustainable Development Goals have gender equality and women's empowerment at their core. Rural women, the majority of whom depend on natural resources and agriculture for their livelihoods, make up over a quarter of the total world population. In developing countries, rural women represent approximately 43% of the agricultural labor force, and they produce, process, and prepare much of the food available, thereby giving them primary responsibility for food security. However, the majority of these women, if not all, do not own this land. On the farms where they work, they don't even occupy senior positions like foremen, despite being in the majority. Those that do not work and remain at home are treated as non-entities. For example, in most rural areas that follow traditional leadership, many men leave their wives and migrate to urban areas to work. They come back after some time, having left the women as the ones looking after the households. However, when there are meetings at some of the councils, it is the men who are called, despite their being absent from the area for a long time. Those who were there along the women are excluded. Khoshito Vejani will agree with me that Limpopo is excluded on this practice because we honor the women. These are some of the traditional mindsets that we must change. We must empower these rural women so that they occupy their rightful places in their communities and their developments. The theme for this year, International Rural Women's Day, which reads Rural of Women as Agents for Achieving Sustainable Socio-Economic Development, could therefore not have come at a better time. We must bear in mind that 76% of extremely poor people live in rural areas, and the majority of these are women. Therefore, ensuring rural women's access to productive agricultural resources contributes to decreasing world hunger and poverty, and make rural women critical for the success of the new Sustainable Development Agenda for 2030, as the SDGs are formally called. Therefore, there is no doubt that to achieve this SDGs, we must expand economic opportunities and activities for rural women. In order to do this, we must first confront the facts, for example, why the scientific data show that girls develop quicker mentally and thus have potential to outspace boys educationally. Women continue to be underrepresented in critical areas of the economy like maths, science, technology, related fields, areas that are projected to grow at faster rates than other job sectors and that present significant economic opportunities. Expanding economic opportunity begins with expanding educational opportunity. There is a need, therefore, to ensure that we start with educational empowerment of rural women, especially in the fields of maths, science, and technology, and target the young girls in particular. Re tla ba re phethagatša se se bolelang ke seema ge se re letlhaka le koba e sa le le lenanana. This will boost the confidence in these young girls that can help them to become good women leaders in the future. It is a fact that confidence helps us deal with the challenges in life. If we are confident, we believe in our abilities and feel hopeful that we can achieve our goals. We are also more willing to try new things, and this helps us to learn. Having confidence also means we are more likely to feel comfortable with ourselves and that we have something worthwhile to give. This is what rural women needs. Confidence helps us interact with other people, which makes it easier for us to form relationships. We live in a social world, so our relationships with others are of considerable importance to our well-being. Confidence is an essential part of building relationships. The more confident we are, the stronger, healthier relationships we will be able to build with others. Therefore, the sooner we give these young girls confidence, the better. In my language again, we say, this is more critical in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics because women in these fields make on average 33% more than women in the non-STEM fields, and the gender pay gap is smaller in those occupations. In this respect, we can, for example, create opportunities for mentorship in these fields. Research shows that outstanding women mentors and role models can break down stereotypes and help girls believe by seeing that they too can succeed in STEM education and careers. Any tertiary education remains one of the surest pathways into the middle class. Women with a degree or diploma earn 26% more than those with only a matric. Women with bachelor's degree earn more than 80% more than, and these returns are growing. So there is no doubt that tertiary education is a way to go for a rural woman. Another area that we must focus on is entrepreneurial empowerment for women. It is a fact that women in poor communities often face barriers that prevent them from participating in their country's economies and from any income to support themselves and their families. In this is largely because they cannot access financing and loans from financing institutions such as banks. This is so unfortunate because there is no doubt that women at the bottom of the world's economic ladder can save and start income-generating business if they were to gain access to financial services that will assist them with capital to start businesses. In many countries, African countries, South Africa included, we still have a system where banks still need sureties before they can lend prospective entrepreneurs some money. Rural women bear the brunt of this system because they don't even own land that they can use as surety. They often lack rights to land, which tend to be held by men or kinship groups controlled by men. And women have access mainly through a male relative, usually a father or a husband. In South Africa, some inroads have been made to achieve this noble goal of advancing and empowering women, thus eventually achieving an equal society as required by our constitution. However, this is not enough as the majority of our rural women have not attained this equality. What this means in performance language is that this is only the output. What we need is the outcome, which is equality for women at all levels. We must, all of us, especially those women in higher positions, help empower to develop the ordinary woman at the ground level, targeting more especially the rural women. When you empower and advance women, you are not doing them a favor. Neither are you doing yourself a favor. In fact, if there is any favor being done, that is a favor you do South Africa, as the women constitute a bigger percentage of the population of South Africa. So let us do South Africa a favor and take part in expansion of economic opportunities and activities for rural women. Remember, you empower a woman, you empower the nation. I thank you, Chairperson. Ke a go leboga.
Thank you. Zuzukutaba nkama watata na mtileni.
Inkomo mutshamo wa xitulu tatana Nyambe. Mshaweta nkwenu. The first International Day of Rural Women was observed on 15 October 2008 by the UN General Assembly and recognizes the critical role, the contribution of rural women, including indigenous women, in enhancing agricultural and rural development, improving food security, and eradicating rural poverty. This was also in recognition of the struggles that women in general and rural women in particular are facing. The patriarchal society within which we live has condemned women to a life of perpetual suffering, required to give so much and yet receive so little. It has reduced women into slaves in their homes where they should be getting love and appreciation. Rural women are the most excluded from economic participation, and as a result of outdated cultural practices, are even denied opportunities to study. The government is only happy to raise hollow voices about their commitment to improve the lives of rural women. But in reality, the oppression of women in rural areas is only gaining ground under the blind leadership and policies of the African National Congress, which continue to have women as spectators in a game they should be playing. In areas under traditional leadership, most women are denied the rights to own and use land, unless they are married or have grown-up male children. Most women have not given rights to even speak. Most women are not even given rights to speak, even in traditional courts or meetings, and need males as intermediaries to voice their concerns. This patriarchy extends to institutions of governance in rural areas. The Traditional Leadership and Framework Act of 2003 requires that about 30% of the seats in traditional councils should be occupied by women. But up to this stage, the government has done nothing to enforce this provision. Traditional councils are still occupied by men. I think you'll agree with me on this one. Rural women do not have access to most basic of rights, such as access to clean and healthy water, access to quality medical care, and access to basic education for the girl child. Those in rural areas are living with the fear of being raped, murdered, or abducted and forced into marriages. All this happen with impunity. There is neither will nor ability on the part of those who lead us to secure the lives of rural women. There is no better demonstration of the sick nature of our government views the rights of rural women than the case of Mantuli, the President Jacob Zuma's wife, who was accused of having poisoned the president. Mantuli was kicked out of her house by Minister Mahlobo, a man with whom she has no relations to. If Mantuli can be kicked out of her marital home like that, then you can imagine what ordinary women in rural South Africa have to go through. If a man of no lesser stature than the president.
Honorable Mittileni, please take your seat. The Honorable Member Zwani, take your seat, Honorable Mittileni.
Chairperson,
I'm rising on a point of being irrelevant on the topic of the debate that has been given to members. Mtileni has got no right, Honorable Mtileni has got no right to deviate from the debate and actually discuss the president's personal or family affairs. That is unbecoming and it is not acceptable. Go and prepare for your debate and come back if you're not prepared.
The honorable member Zwane, please take your seat. Honorable Mitilen, you're secured, Baba, you're covered. It's your time for debate. Continue.
I know the members from the other party will always
Continue with
howl
your
at me.
debate. Continue
Thank you
with
so
your
much,
debate.
ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you so much for protecting me. If Mantul can be kicked out of a marital home like that, then you can imagine what ordinary women in rural South Africa have to go through. If a man of no lesser stature than the president of the constitutional democracy, such as ours, can be so bold as to kick his wife out of a home based on flimsy accusations, then how much more do ordinary men in rural South Africa can treat their wives? What kind of example is the leadership of the country setting for other men in rural areas? That it is okay for men to kick out their wives whenever they feel like. The case of Mantuli is similar to the struggles of most rural women, whose role society limits only to being servants for men. The EFF believes that the liberation of rural women is central to the project of liberating all people in this country. As long as society views rural women as objects for satisfying sexual or other needs of men with no consciences, such as the men who kick out their wives from their homes, the struggle for liberation continues.
Honorable Mitilen.
We must never rest
Honorable Mitilen.
until women
Honorable
are
Mitilen.
empowered
Honorable
to say
Mitilen.
no to abuse.
Honorable Mitilen. Honorable Mitilen.
We must never rest
Honorable Mitilen.
until women in rural
Honorable
areas are
Mitilen.
given rights
Honorable
to
Mitilen.
learn,
Honorable
with
Mitilen.
or without
No,
husbands.
you can't do this, Honorable Mitilen.
Thank you so much, Chairperson.
You were out of order, you were not on the topic, and I
Okay.
left you, and then now you don't even have to listen. No, 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 no. Respect this end, Honorable Mitileni. Okay, we continue. I shall now call on the Honorable Tusi, MEC from KwaZulu-Natal.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, the Deputy Minister of Rural Development and Land Reform, my colleagues, the MECs, honorable members. Chairperson, thank you very much for affording me an opportunity to participate in this very important debate, which takes place just a few days after the NGC of the African National Congress took many progressive resolutions aimed at, among other things, improving the lives of women in rural areas. True to the tradition of our gallant movement, the NGC delegates conducted comprehensive assessment of what has been achieved in the empowerment of rural women, the challenges that they still face, and also crafted concrete plans to address the existing challenges. Honorable Chairperson, allow me to paint a picture of the conditions that rural women in South Africa face. The apartheid economy was a gendered system of oppression. A pillar of the system was the creation of Bantustan areas as the basis for migrant labor. Currently, the majority of African women live in the former so-called homelands. Women in particular were kept in these impoverished and often remote areas to bear the burden of caring for children and the elderly. This barbaric system was created and perfected by people such as P.W. Botha, who is today being glorified by some among us here today. We want to warn the DA that South Africans will not allow you to create new P.W. Bothas, because our people still remember vividly what the apartheid architects such as Botha did. While a lot has been achieved in terms of the provision of government services, such as water, electricity, healthcare, and education, rural women are still more likely to have inadequate electricity, clean water, and sanitation. In recognition of these appalling conditions under which rural women exist, the ANC and its government have undertaken to continue making rural development and land reform an important policy priority. Recent statistics show that more and more rural women have access to healthcare and education. We are creating a new generation of women who are empowered academically. That is why we continue to intensify early childhood development, converting most of our schools to no-fee schools and providing NSFAS funding to millions of tertiary students. As we celebrate the International Rural Women's Day, we must express our gratitude to women who have established and run community organizations, helping the vulnerable members of our society, such as the disabled, the homeless, and orphans. Just like what the ANC NGC delegates did when dealing with challenges facing our women, the International Rural Women's Day presents all of us honorable members with a few things, with the opportunity to do a few things. Firstly, to assess what government and other relevant social partners have achieved in relation to the empowerment of women in rural areas. Singakhohlwa ukuthi siphuma kuphi, and how long did it take ukusicindezela. Secondly, we must also examine the lack of progress in pursuing the goal of the emancipation of women in rural areas. Having assessed the efficacy of our efforts in this task, the third and last step is to recommit ourselves to continuing the acceleration of the struggle for the advancement of women in rural areas. In recommitting ourselves to increase efforts to eradicate oppression of women, we do so fully aware that the scale of this challenge calls for broad mobilization of society. In August, we observed Women's Month, and the theme for this year was Women United in Moving South Africa Forward. This theme is in line with what former president of the ruling party, O.R. Tambo, said in 1981, open quote, "The mobilization of women is the task not only of women alone or of men alone, but of all of us, men and women alike, comrades in the struggle. The mobilization of the people into active resistance and struggle for liberation demands the energies of women no less than that of men. A system based on the exploitation of men by men can in no way avoid the exploitation of women by the male member of society. There is no way in which women in general can liberate themselves with fighting to end the exploitation of men by men, both as a concept and as a social system," close quote. The celebration of the International Rural Women's Day takes place when, as the country, we are also paying tribute to our former president, O.R. Tambo, who took it upon himself to champion the cause of the emancipation of women. Guided by his wise words, we must intensify efforts aimed at fast-tracking the entry of women from rural areas into the mainstream economy. Honorable Chairperson, the Premier's office has been reconfigured to make sure that we have an institutional development and integrity management branch, which has a responsibility to champion all efforts aimed at the protection and promotion of rights for the vulnerable members of our society, especially rural women and children, older persons, and people with disabilities. Currently, through this unit, government is rolling out an anti-rape campaign, and we have received positive feedback from members of the community and NGOs. Democracy Support Services, we want to unite the people of this province behind a common goal of ensuring the empowerment of women. Honorable Chairperson, key issues that must be discussed beyond this sitting include how to change the environment so that women in rural areas are in a position to access and exercise their rights, how to address the income gap between men and women,
rich and poor, where women are the poorest of the poor, especially those in rural areas. How best to address increasing rates of maternal and infant deaths. What programs can be put in place to deal with the growing feminization of poverty. How to spread up economic empowerment and skills development initiatives for women in rural areas, as these are key issues in the transformation of the lives of women who live in poverty. South African women make up 52% of the entire population, and 57% of women are found in the informal trade sector, where they operate their own businesses. Honorable Chairperson, in August, the Premier addressed the procurement indaba, attended by reps from the International Labour Organization, national ministers, and members of the Provincial Executive Council. During this gathering, he emphasized the importance of ensuring that women-owned cooperatives and SMMEs benefit from government procurement. Women-only cooperatives account for a significant proportion of the cooperative landscape in South Africa. Honorable Chairperson, having said that, I wish to inform members of this House that the Office of the Premier towards the end of August coordinated a Widows Summit. The summit was attended by widows, most of them from rural areas. We convened this summit because statistics show that almost half of women over the age of 60 are widowed, compared to less than 15% of men. The dissolution of families often leads to the formation of female-headed households with responsibility for children and other dependents, or the integration of surviving females into extended family units. Either option increases the burden households have to contend with. Therefore, during the Widows Summit, serious attention was given to the plight of widows, especially those in rural areas. It was resolved that government departments and local municipalities must develop concrete projects to benefit widows. In conclusion, I want to say, let us all work together to make sure that we empower women in the rural areas, because all of us in this room know where we come from and the damage made by the apartheid system. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable MEC. I shall now call on Councillor Komba from Salga.
Honorable Chairperson or Sitting Chairperson, Honorable Deputy Minister for Rural Development and Land Reform, Honorable MECs, Honorable members of the NCOP, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Honorable Chair, Salga appreciates to be part of this important debate of recognizing the role of rural women, including indigenous women, in enhancing agricultural and rural development, improving food security, and eradicating rural poverty. The theme, rural women as agents for achieving sustainable socio-economic development, should inspire and motivate us to do more and towards more action and support for the advancement of rural women. This day is not only an important occasion to salute rural women across the world, but it also offers a critical window of opportunity to push the empowerment of rural women up the global political and economic agenda. It also serves to remind us and society at large to give value and credit to rural women's work. Rural women around the world play a major role in ensuring food security and in the development of the rural areas. Yet, they frequently lack the power to secure land rights and access to vital services necessary for their upliftment. their vital contribution to society goes largely unnoticed. Allow me to give an overview of rural women's work. Rural women's work is obviously not a simple one, since it relates to a complete range of socio-economic activities. Basically, it encompasses working on the farm, engaging in agricultural production, working in the house, as well as maintenance, the actual maintenance of the household. In rural areas where electricity, sanitation, and indoor water are usually lacking, the provision of these amenities is generally women's work. This cannot be overemphasized, Chair. Most speakers have spoken to that. This includes fetching water and firewood, usually over long distances. Hence, it is maintained that rural women are bearers of a threefold role. According to the International Fund for Agricultural Development, agricultural activities, whether as subsistence or as casual or permanent work, is one of the main sectors of employment, particularly for rural women. Surprisingly, women's agricultural work, that of food processing, preparation and storage, which makes food crops to be saleable and edible, is considered to be invisible. The above portrays that rural women's contribution reaches beyond the frontier of the family to have a positive impact on the community and national welfare. Therefore, the essence of rural women's contribution to sustainable socio-economic development is their overwhelming share in agricultural production. Finding ways of alleviating rural women's workload should be the point of departure of every action that intends to make rural women full partners in the development process. Given women's essential role in food production and the great amount of work they do, it would make sense that development programs would be directed to women to help them improve their farming methods, reduce their workload, and give them access to rural services such as water and fuel supplies, credit, training, land, and markets. The question is, what needs to be done to release women's potential as agents of sustainable socio-economic development? We need initiatives designed with specific measures to empower women, enabling them to acquire the means and the ability to participate in the mainstream of socio-economic development. International Fund for Agricultural Development in 2003, when it addressed this as a theme, when it said women as agents of change, when you read that, it is still relevant even today. And these include increasing women's access to and control over income through entrepreneurial skills training, access to land, credit, and improved market linkages. Building women's knowledge, skills, and functional literacy. Strengthening women's organization by promoting group formations such as cooperatives and associations. Addressing women's practical needs through the provision of water, health, and sanitation services, as well as time-saving measures to help women to manage their competing and demanding tasks more efficiently. Honorable Chair, investing to improve rural girls and rural women's lives is a moral imperative and can reverse the poverty equation and generate multiple wins that can help solve some of the world's most challenging problems and assist in enhancing agricultural and rural development, improving food security, and eradicating rural poverty. Based on their various roles, Rural women constitute the bedrock of any development policy in the country. Promoting and ensuring the full enjoyment of the rights of rural women and expanding their access to opportunities, resources, and services requires comprehensive action at different levels. Let us therefore seize the opportunity and act together now and acknowledge that rural women are the missing strong link to sustainable socio-economic development. The SALGA Women's Commission intends to be part of the solution to empower rural women as agents of sustainable socio-economic development. It is therefore our resolve that as SALGA Women's Commission in our Lekgotla that took place in KZN from the 29th September to 1st October, that we relaunch the call for war women representation, more than 50-50 if possible, at all levels of decision making. And that campaign, if you look at it, is at local level at municipalities, but also looking at the content of today's topic, for it to succeed, it shall be realized at a local level. Therefore, looking at local level, I want to say we shall only succeed, Chair, if we ground it to local level. Malbongwe, I thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Kumba. I shall now call on the Honourable Nita. Over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Let me first greet the Minister, the MECs that are present, the colleagues, my colleagues, and as well as SALGA and officials and all those that are here to listen to our debate. Chair, let me start by saying, for us to be able to address the challenges that are faced by women, children, and people with disability, we need all of us. Rather than us coming here and compete, or else and politicking the whole thing, rather than addressing it. Chair, the ANC has always championed the idea that women's rights are human rights, and the rights of women include the right to bodily integrity, so that they can decide what to do with their own bodies and lives. The Women's Charter for Effective Equality recognized that for decades, patriarchy, colonialism, racism, apartheid have subordinated and oppressed women within capital, economic, social life in South Africa. Through the pillars of the Freedom Charter, all nations shall have equal rights. The Charter is inspired by equality, all our claims in this Charter. The value, gender equality, and non-sexism can be seen in South African Constitution through policies, legislation, and institutions that give life to those. These have been influenced by the ANC, while the ANC has been influenced by engendering of the national liberation movement through the struggles of women as articulated in the ANC Charter, Women's Charter of 1954. Chair, in addressing those challenges, part of the challenges facing women, children, and older persons and persons with disability is accessing their legal rights of acting against any and all forms of discrimination. Is access to police stations. Rural police stations are often isolated and are responsible for policed vast areas. Inadequate response to the need of rural communities and resources constrains and hamper the rendering of effective policing in many rural areas. The need for the law enforcement in rural areas empower women, older persons, and people with disabilities in exercising their legal right against violence.
challenge faced is being unable to access the police or courts limits the exercise of rights and resulting in their infringement. The National Rural Strategic Plan ought to ensure that there is adequate training for police officers in the sexual offences first responders course with aim of first respond to sexual offences. On services provided to ensure that safety of women, children, older persons, and persons with disabilities, the establishment of at least 6 provinces of one-stop shop services of abuse in South Africa and 109 shelters through the country, accounting and rendering psychosocial to women and their dependent children who are abused. These facilities are driven through the Department of Social Development. During the year 2011 and 13, of the shelters were buffed with services to host victims of human trafficking and trained persons to assist trafficking of victims. Women and children in rural areas are at times more prone to human trafficking, which directly violate their right of persons, as it is an activity that infringes of human dignity. Putting stop to abuse, South African government has made sure that there are legislations that are curbing such. The Domestic Violence Act of 1998 was enacted to provide survivors with protection from domestic violence and abuse. Prevention and Combating of Trafficking in Persons Act number 7 of 2015 provide a single structure that tactically human trafficking holistically and comprehensively, but provoking a maximum penalty of 100 million of life imprisonment on all those that are found to be guilty. And if you are found with a conviction, you will get both. The Discriminal Laws, Sexual Offences and Related Matters Act number 32 of 2007 serve the purpose of fighting sexual crimes against all persons and especially sexual offences that are committed against vulnerable groups, including women, children, mentally disabled persons as well. And the Children's Act 38 of 2005 empower young girls to exercise their legal right to protect by law not to participate in any activity that are harmful or infringe of their basic human rights without infringing their rights to choose religious or cultural preferences as provided for in the Constitution in Section 1530 and 31, the protection of the rights to culture. The ANC Gender Discussion Document is progressive in that it provides a solid foundation for advancing child protection in the country, and furthermore, it has been progressive in fulfilling children's right to social security. However, there remains a challenge in accessing this, but more concerning is the lack of knowledge of these instruments in place that will provide support and empower for young girls. Programs are put in place. Programs like 16 Days of Activism on No Violence Against Women and Children, programs that are driven by offices of social development where they are trained and also made aware of their rights. It is important to make sure that all those rights are known by everybody so that all those that get to be affected by ills of abuse, they get to be protected. It must be noted, Chairperson, that all these things that we're doing as African National Congress, We have just joined government in 1994. We are repairing the ills of 1948. Hence, there is a need of us working collectively to change the situation of rural women, children, and people with disability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I shall now call on the Honorable Member Wenger from the Western Cape.
Thank you, Chairperson. The idea of honoring rural women with a special day was put forward at the 4th United Nations World Conference on Women in Beijing in 1995. This was in order to highlight the important role that women in rural communities play in food production and food security. It was suggested that the 15th of October be celebrated as World Rural Women's Day to coincide with World Food Day. For the last 7 years, the United Nations International Day of Rural Women has been celebrated, which honors the role that these women play, and something we are doing today. We recognize the significance rural women have in enhancing agricultural and rural development across the globe. Probably then, without coincidence, that the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries has adopted October as Food Security Month to draw attention to food security and production. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, said that the core of the new Sustainable Development Goals are gender equality and women's empowerment, and to include a target to double the agricultural productivity and incomes of small-scale food producers, in particular women. He said, indeed, rural women are critical to the success of almost all of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Across the world, rural women account for more than 1/4 of the total world population, and of these, 500 million live below the poverty line. Therefore, ensuring women's access to productive agricultural resources and land helps to decrease world hunger and poverty, and which make rural women critical for the success of the Sustainable Development Agenda for 2030. In the developing world, rural women represent approximately 43% of the agricultural labor force and are responsible for not only growing and producing food, but also for processing and preparing food. In many cases, women have the primary responsibility for food security. For example, women in sub-Saharan Africa and the Caribbean produce 60 to 80% of basic foodstuffs. Yet, with little or no status, they frequently lack the power to secure land rights or to access vital services such as credit, training, and education. Rural women's contribution to society goes largely unnoticed, even though their contribution is critical. Not only for their contribution, but also because of the knock-on effects of women empowerment. A Chinese proverb says that women hold up half the sky, but sometimes it seems that we hold up much more than the sky. We carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. We hold within our hands the nourishment of our planet and our children's futures on our backs. The United Nations Development Programme states that women's empowerment helps raise economic productivity and reduces infant mortality. It contributes to improved health and nutrition. It increases the chance of education for the next generation. Women certainly carry our children's futures on their backs. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization tells us that when women farmers have the same kind of access to resources such as land, seed, and fertilizer as men do, their crop yields can increase by 20 to 30%. Furthermore, the overall agricultural output can be improved as much as 4%. They estimate that by leveling and equaling the playing field, malnourishment in the world could be decreased by as much as 150 million people. Increasing women's participation and access to markets leads to greater productivity and consumption. This is because when women have more control and decision-making powers over household income, they tend to invest their money in education, in health and nutrition of their children. All of this results in better educated and healthier citizens. When women are given equal opportunities, the benefits are felt right across society. It is then fitting that in June this year, the 25th African Union Summit discussed making finance accessible, affordable, and timely for women in the agricultural sector. The National Development Plan states that key priorities such as education and rural development will have the biggest impact on poor women. This is because when women are upskilled and can earn and control an income, the cycle of poverty can be broken. Improving the status of women is the highway to the development of our society. In the Western Cape, top female entrepreneurs in the agricultural sector are honoured each year. The Western Cape Department of Agriculture, in partnership with the National Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, hold an annual competition to recognise women who are making a significant impact in the agricultural sector. All of the entrants make a valuable contribution to food security, job creation, and economic growth. The Western Cape Department of Agriculture is committed to developing women in the sector and has set itself a goal to move women from subsistence farming to smallholder farming and to the point where they're able to export their produce. Currently, the Western Cape produces half of all of South Africa's agricultural exports. Agriculture and land reform is a top priority in the Western Cape. The Western Cape Department of Agriculture increased its budget significantly to bolster the agri-processing industry so that thousands of jobs could be created in rural areas. The very successful equity share schemes also deserve mention because rural communities benefit from better land reform. The Western Cape is the best performing province in land reform, as my colleague mentioned in a motion earlier today. It has a success rate that far exceeds every other province. Land reform is key to the empowerment of rural women. The Western Cape is participating in the district land reform committees, and to assist farm workers and rural women, the Western Cape Department of Agriculture has recently established a land reform advisory desk. This desk shows the Western Cape's commitment to rural communities and provides planning support to farmers, to businesses, municipalities, and landowners, and supports emerging and existing farmers in the industry. Today, it would have been important for this House to hear from the MECs about their government's programs of action and how they are supporting rural communities and especially rural women. But instead, we heard a lot of politics, we heard even more about the NGC, and a lot about talk shops. What a pity, what a pity. Melinda Gates said that a woman with a voice is by definition a strong woman, but the search to find that voice can be remarkably difficult, close quote. It's up to each and every one of us, every woman and every man, to take every possible step to empower rural women financially and instructionally so that our society can progress. After all, women do hold up half of the sky. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I shall now call on the Honourable MEC from Northwest, Honourable Sambata.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I'm privileged to be almost the last speaker. So I'm almost covered by most of colleagues who spoke before me. I shall, however, proceed with the prepared speech. I'm only not going to do and repeat what has been quoted by those who spoke before me that I had prepared to quote, particularly Honourable Tusi on O.R. Tambo in 1981. ANC members are informed. They know where to start and they know where to end. Let me, however, Chair, it's not a rally, it's a speech. Let me, however, Chair, quote again on Utata Nelson Mandela when he said, and I quote, that freedom cannot be achieved unless women have been emancipated from all forms of oppression. Our endeavors must be about the liberation of women, the emancipation of man and liberty of the child. As said by the previous speakers, that the World Rural Women's Day was launched by several international NGOs during the 4th UN World Conference on Women in Beijing, 1995. And the Whole World Empowerment and Education Campaign is annually organized since 1997 by Women World Summit Foundation. Celebrations and events take place in more than 100 countries around the world. This new international day, established by the General Assembly in its resolution 62/136 of December 2007, recognizes the critical role and contribution of rural women, including indigenous women, in enhancing agriculture and rural development, food security, and eradication of rural poverty. Rural women in the world overplay a major role in ensuring food security and in developing and stability of rural areas. Yet, with legal or no status, they frequently lack the power to secure land rights or to access vital services such as credit, inputs, extension services, training, and education. Their vital contribution to society goes largely unnoticed. Rural Women's Day aims to change this by bringing rural women out of obscurity at least once a year, to remind society how much they owe to rural women and to give value and credit to their work. South Africa is ahead of the rest of Africa in giving support to women entrepreneurs under the ANC government. This is according to the recently released Female Entrepreneurship Index of 2015, which looked at how 77 countries across the world are fostering women entrepreneurship and evaluated them according to entrepreneurial environment, the ecosystem, and aspirations. The top 3 countries are the United States, followed by Australia, with UK coming 3rd. South Africa ranked the highest at 36 worldwide with a score of 44.2 out of 100. Coming back to my province, Northwest. Northwest is predominantly 65% rural and 35% urban, with a population of 3.5 million. As according to Census 2011, the female population is higher than the male population in the province. The total of the economically active population is 57% of the total population. Of this 57%, 55% it's male as opposed to 44% of female. Male active population is therefore more than that of females in the province. The province celebrates the top women agricultural entrepreneurs each year without fail. This is meant to encourage and support women involved in the sector. As predominantly mining province, the plight of women mine workers has to be raised sharply in the following areas. 1, employment. Though the mining charter stipulations have improved the previous situations, but still today, the mining industry lacks appetite on employment of women underground. 2, safety of underground women workers still a problem. The House must remember the case of Pinky Musiani, who was brutally raped and killed whilst at work underground in the platinum mine in Rustenburg. Again, on the beginning of what became as known as Marikana massacre or tragedy in our language, just in August 2012, 4 women workers were paraded naked in the stadium full of men as striking mine workers. This public humiliation was done only on reasons that these workers went to work because they did not want to participate in the unprotected strike. In conclusion, Chair, Thomas Sankara once said on women, and I quote, that women's fate is bound up with that of an exploited male. However, this solidarity must not blind us in looking at specific situations faced by women folk in our society. It is true that women workers and simple men are exploited economically, but the worker wife is also condemned further to silence by her worker husband. This is the same method used by men to dominate other men. The idea was crafted that certain men, by virtue of their family origin and birth, or by divine rights, were superior to others. Close quote. When I close, Chair, I must remind this House that in the last general elections, 18 million South Africans voted. 11 million South Africans voted for the African National Congress. And the majority of them were women, that's a fact. 7 million out of 18 million voted for 15 political parties. Now, rural women and women in general are happy with the African National Congress. They call the movement Ugwebindlala, Siswa Semqanduli. They call the ANC Ugwebindlala. They call the movement Indoda Yabahlolokazi. This they do proudly because the ANC cares and only the ANC will resolve their challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Julius.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members in the public. I think, Honorable Sambata, for a person that was covered, you really said a mouthful here. Chairperson, indeed, rural women form the backbone of the rural economy. It does make sense to focus on the development of our rural women, especially the economic development. Now, Chair, I loved your lecture earlier, because you are agreeing with me that rural women are still, most of them are still underdeveloped, and I agree with you. I wish the Deputy Minister would agree with us. Just this weekend, the Secretary General of the ANC admitted that the recapitalization process of emerging farmers is taking far too long, and it is not good for the economic development of these people involved here. Now, it is good to admit such a challenge, but it's another to acknowledge that it's the ANC that actually allowed this backlog for the past 21 years. What he also failed to admit was that ANC policies and processes are preventing rural women from economic development. Actually, this tendency is the hallmark of the ANC NGC of this past weekend. Deputy Minister Dlamini Mashego, you know, the acknowledged high level of corruption this weekend in government will always have a more devastating effect on rural women, and I'm sure you would agree with this. Unless you root out corruption in government, in this ANC-led government, you really do not care about the lives of rural women in our society. Now, whilst we are acknowledging challenges, please tell South Africans why you could not spend money wisely for the past 21 years. Please tell them why you have become so corrupt over these past 21 years that rural women are the ones that's losing out. That's what characterized your NGC failure over the last 21 years. That's why you came together. Why are they still so poor? Deputy Minister, you said the 4%. It's your 4%. You must take the blame for the 4%. It's yours. Chairperson,
Okay,
if
Honorable
rural women...
Julius, take your seat. The Honorable House Chairperson.
Chairperson, I'm checking whether the Honorable Member, Julius, is ready to take a question so that he can assist South Africans.
Okay, the Honorable Julius, are you ready to take a question?
Chairperson, I honestly don't have time. I'll next time, Honorable.
He's not
Yambi.
ready, Honorable House Chair.
Chairperson, if rural women are seen as the backbone of our economies, why are they not empowered like all other people in South Africa? Is this not the contradiction of the Freedom Charter that you refer to so often? Give rural women title deeds so that they can develop their own land and acquire business loans to develop their own lives and that of their children. Rural women cannot forever be dependent on grants and handouts. These handouts that you hold them ransom to for a vote. Honorable Sifako, I disagree with you. Rural women can become capitalists, just like the almost richest man in South Africa, the Deputy President. Chairperson, the truth is that the land reform policies of the ANC will not allow rural women under traditional leadership to prosper on their own because of electoral bondage with some traditional leaders. The ANC has simply continued colonial and apartheid homeland policies to keep the rural poor people under control and dependent. Rural women under traditional leadership will thus never own the capital that rightfully belongs to them. Khoshi. At the expense of freedom, fairness, and opportunity of our rural women, the ANC will continue to mollycoddle traditional leaders to secure votes. Rural women, amongst other rural people, are unashamedly being forced to stay disempowered and subordinate subjects of traditional leaders by the ANC. Votes are more important to the ANC than the emancipation of our rural women in South Africa. This is not former President
Honorable
Mandela.
Julius, Honorable
Do you agree, Honorable
Honorable
Sambata?
Julius, hold it there, Papa. Your time has expired.
I thank you, Chair.
Honorable Zwane, the Honorable Member Zwane.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Honorable members of the NCOP, special delegates. Let me start off by saying that it has always been in the agenda of the African National Congress to ensure that women are emancipated and developed. And they take their meaningful positions in the decision-making processes of the governance of this country. And the African National Congress-led government has done precisely that. Secondly, one needs to thank the UN, amazwe omhlaba ahlangene ukuthatha isinqumo sokuthi alube khona usuku la sihlangana khona njengosopolitiki sikhulume ngokubaluleka kokukhululwa kwabantu besifazane laphaya endaweni zasemakhaya, bakhululwe ebuphofini ikakhulukazi, bakhululwe futhi nasekungazini, bakhululwe futhi nasecindezelweni ngaphakathi endaweni abahlala kuzona. Women have been always at the forefront of transformation, not only in South Africa, in all the developing countries and also the world over. But the most unfortunate part of circumstances is that their contributions have never ever been adequately or properly captured. And I think it is time that as women living in this age and era, we correct the history going forward. And the ANC-led government is doing precisely that. We are correcting the history that has not been captured. In terms of the United Nations, rural women form the majority of women that are dependent on natural resources and agriculture for their livelihood. And they make up a quarter of the total world population. In developing countries, rural women represent approximately 43% of the agricultural labor force. They produce food, they process food, they prepare food. And if you were to remove them from the occasion, there can be disaster because there isn't anybody really that's going to take the responsibility of ensuring that there is food security. Therefore, ensuring that rural women have access to productive agricultural resources like land, then you are empowering women and you are making a vital contribution in addressing the world hunger and poverty. Umake kuthuthukiswa abantu besifazane benikezwa umhlaba, siyazi ukuthi sizokwazi njengesizwe nanjengezwe ukulwa nendlala. Ngoba abantu abahlala besegejini belima besebenza umhlaba ikakhulukazi abantu besifazane. Kusho ukuthi abantu abenza ukuthi ibhodwe liye eziko abantu besifazane. Ngakho ke ibona laba okufanele bawunikezwe umhlaba. When it comes to issues relating to governance, or maybe before I go on, let me address some of the issues that some of the members touched on, and they need that record to be straightened. Honorable Mvenya, I'm surprised that you say that there hasn't been rural development. Is there a member of any legislature that can say that in South Africa in this era, no rural development? Women use roads, the road infrastructure that has been developed by the African National Congress to go to clinics and deliver. There are clinics in the rural areas, and that is where women go to get their babies. In fact, they prefer to go there rather than go to hospitals because in hospitals there are too many patients. In clinics, you get that attention that you deserve as a woman coming to give birth. So there is development in the rural areas, there are roads, the sole intention of which is to ensure that mabegula abantu besifazane beyobeletha bahamba emgaqweni emihle. There is a road in Potchefstroom, lapha eMzumbe esuka eSt. Faith's going up to Pungashe. That road has been so bad ever since I was born. I never really thought ngisaphila ngobona lo mgwaqo ufakwe itiyela. Uhamba imoto, uhamba amatekisi, uhamba bonke abantu khona ngokululeka. Today that road has been tarred. Ngikhuluma nge-rural infrastructure elethwa ubani African ANC-led government in rural areas. Lapha kuma-rural areas kukhona amanzi kabhisi. When I've been a mayor of a district that has been a water services authority, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Lapha kuma-rural areas amanzi ayasatshalaliswa njengoba ngikhuluma. Besino Department of Water and Sanitation earlier this morning, reading a report of what they've done in terms of ensuring that people in the rural areas begin to get clean water. This is done by the African National Congress. Lapha yakuma districts kune problem yokuthi the infrastructure that was laid by the apartheid government was not meant to ensure that people out in the rural areas are serviced. And therefore districts have to spend a lot of money in terms of ensuring that appropriate infrastructure is put for people to continue to receive clean water in order for them to live and survive. Yahluleka i-apartheid ukwenza lokho. Don't even start. Bese kuzothi ke ubaba uMtileni yena. Honorable Mtileni, I'm addressing you. Listen to me. No, I was born and bred by a woman in the rural area.
Okay, Mama, hold it there. Please take your seat.
Honorable Chairperson, on a point of order. This member is now repeatedly addressing members directly instead of having the whole address through you as Chairperson.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Van Order, Honorable members. Thank you, Honorable Van Lingen. The Honorable Member Zwane Please address the chair, ma. Thank you.
No, thank you. I will refer to members by honorable members. They are honorable, and I will refer to them as such. Honorable Mtileni, I was born by a woman in the rural area, all right? And this woman taught me that you don't go about in the public and hang dirty linen of families. Uyindoda unomzi wakho. You've got no right ukungena emzini wenye indoda and talk about issues and deviate from your debate. You've got no right to do that.
Okay,
Therefore-
Honorable Zwani, take your seat. Honorable Mitilene, Honorable Mitilene.
I'm posing a question.
Order, honorable members. I want to hear what the Honorable Mitilene is
Thank you
going
so
to
much.
say.
I'm posing a question to Honorable Zwane.
You cannot
I
just
want to know
pose
the
Honorable
dirty linen she's
Mitilene.
referring to.
Honorable Mitilene.
What
You can-
dirty linen
Honorable
is she referring to? Which
Honorable
one?
Mitilene. Honorable Mitilene. Honorable Mitilene. Honorable
I wanted
Mitilene.
to-
Honorable
Which dirty
Mitilene.
linen is she referring to?
Honorable Mitilene. Please take your seat.
Which one?
Honorable Mitilene, take your seat. We cannot continue, Honorable Mitilene, to speak one thing every time. Before you ask a question to the member, you need to ask if ever she's ready to take a question. So now you have wasted your time. Honorable members, want to continue.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I just wanted to sound caution that the earlier you get out of the president's private affairs, the better for you. Stick to the debate, stick to what you have come here to do. Thank you. And then Honorable Julius.
Order. Honorable Zwane. Honorable
want to remind
Mitilene.
Honorable Zwane, the
Honorable
president is a
Mitilene.
public figure.
Honorable Mitilene. Honorable Mitilene. You
And
cannot
that
just.
story was well
Honorable
read.
Mitilene.
Public consumption.
Honorable Mitilene. Honorable Mitilene. You're wasting your time. We cannot even hear what you're saying, Papa, because you have to ask for permission to speak. You repeat that, Honorable Mitilene will take you out of the house. We cannot tolerate that anymore. Honorable Zwane, continue.
Okay, Honorable Julius, you are a newcomer on issues relating to women's rights.
Order,
and women emancipation.
Honorable Zwane. The Honorable Member Smith, where are you on your feet?
Honorable House Chair, I'm standing on point of order. It seems like this member does not understand the rules of this House, that she's supposed to speak to the House through the chairperson and not direct anything directly to any member. And she repeatedly is doing this and not reprimanded on that. So can you please explain to the honorable member that she must speak through you and not directly to members of this House? Thank you.
Honorable Zwane, most of that you have freedom of speech, Honorable Member. Please, whenever you address the House through the chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Continue, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I will do precisely that. Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Julius actually says that the ANC has failed to emancipate women and the ANC has not done anything for women. I want to say that he is a newcomer on issues relating to women empowerment and emancipation. The cabinet of the Western Cape did not have women. It is the ANC who taught the DA that in a cabinet you must have women. And therefore, you cannot tell us anything about the emancipation of women.
There's a point of order, Honorable Zwane.
Honorable Chairperson, this honorable member must not mislead the House. The Western Cape
Honorable
do
Van Lingen,
have women,
Honorable-
and if this member is
Honorable Van
inferring
Lingen, that is a
Honorable
point
Zille-
of debate. Please take your
Chairperson.
seat.
She must withdraw.
Take
She's
your
not
seat.
speaking
Take your
the
seat,
truth.
Honorable Van Lingen. That is a point
not
of
speaking the
debate.
truth.
Take your seat, and we allow the Honorable Zwane to continue. Continue with your debate, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I just want to say that the ANC-led government is the only government that will ever do anything for women in this country. In the office of the presidency, there is a machinery there that is called gender machinery. The function of this machinery is to ensure that all the government departments have got programs that are meant to empower women, and that these programs are effective and they are going on, and there are assessments that are done periodically to ensure that the government departments comply in this regard.
Oh, Honorable Julius is on his feet. Take your seat, Honorable Zwane. Honorable Julius?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to know whether the honourable member will take a question on does she support the female
Honorable
president?
Zwane, are you ready to take a question from the Honorable Member Julius?
No, I will not.
She is not ready, Honorable Julius.
And
Okay,
on
continue.
issues, Chairperson, relating to equality with respect to jobs, the ANC-led government has done a lot of good work in ensuring that women are no longer subjected to that kind of oppression where males used to get more than women for the same job done. However, in rural areas, we still have a lot of work to do in terms of ensuring that we educate women, or we open opportunities for women in the rural areas to receive education such that they can compete equally well in the job market.
Unfortunately, your time is expired.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I just want to appreciate all the members that has participated in the debate on behalf of the rural women. I just want to indicate few issues on several members that have debated and they've missed the point to convince their rural women. Honorable Chairperson, I'm responding to Honorable Mvenya. I'm responding. Listen. It is an opportunity of every woman who is deployed, whether by which party, in such a parliament which is called the NCOP, which represent provinces, where everyone must represent his or her province. Today we are discussing on issues of rural women. You had an opportunity as a young woman to represent your rural women in the Eastern Cape. But what you did, you came here, just listen. You came here.
Order, honorable members, order.
You came here and speak about the public information that as the ANC in our NGC we have given you is free of charge. It's a public issue. Whether the membership has grown or lapsed, we don't want to scare anybody. We're speaking our own issues. But you take it like as if when our membership has been lowered, therefore it has gone to DA. No, it is not. It is not. It is not.
Honorable members, honorable members, honorable members, honorable members.
I just want
honorable
to
members. Order, honorable minister, please hold it there. Honorable members, please respect the rules of this house. You know very well that you cannot converse aloud. Allow the honorable minister. And the honorable Van Lingen, I would want you to at least help and caution the member next to you that there is a rule in this house. We don't have to converse aloud. The honorable Julius?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to know, is it parliamentary for Honorable Mohape, chairperson of women, to refer to the honorable member as this lady? Thank you.
Okay, take your seat, Honorable Julius. Did you refer to the honorable member as this woman? Honorable members, I'm asking the... Honorable Mohai, Honorable Mohabi, please take your seat. Take your seat. Honorable members, Honorable Van Lingen, I requested you to help the honorable member. I requested you to do that.
Honorable Chairperson, may I ask you something?
Please don't. Don't ask me. I requested you because you've been standing up on rules of this house, and now I am addressing...
Chairperson, if you
I am
can't cope
addressing...
with the honorable member at this house, then I have a problem with you sitting there.
Honorable, okay, let us continue. Honorable member, did you refer to the honorable member as this woman?
Honorable Chair, she's Honorable Mveso or Mvenyo, yes.
Thank you
something
very
like
much.
that,
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Continue, Deputy Minister. Can we have order in the house?
Thank you very much.
Honorable Van Lingen. Honorable Van Lingen, can we have order in this house, please?
Thank you very
Continue,
much,
Honorable.
Chairperson. I just want to give the honorable member some taste of what rural women are doing in the Eastern Cape. Go to Krisani.
There is another point of order. The honorable member, why are you standing?
Honorable Chairperson, you're allowed to address me by my name, that's fine. Will the Deputy Minister please take a question?
Are you ready, Honorable Minister, to take a question?
I'm responding, I'm not taking questions now.
Oh, she is not ready. Please take your seat. Take your seat. Take your seat.
I want the honorable member just to visit these areas that I will mention here. Go to Krisani municipality and look at the feedlot that is there and see how many women are feeding their cattle there at Kwalubomvu. Go to Ekala, 7,000 communities. They have been given sheep and they are farming there at Ekala. Go to the schemes called Kalata, Kamata, Bilache, we have renovated, and most of the cooperatives are women there. No, listen. Go to Nglecha, we've spent 40 million there. We are supporting our farmers, as most of them are women. They are planting macadamia in the Eastern Cape. I'm not speaking about another country, Eastern Cape. Go to Kamakwe, in that secondary school, in that area, we are supporting women on the value chain of chicken, and there's a chicken broiler that is there. It's going to support the agri-park. Go to Butterworth, that's where we're building our agri-park. Must visit there. Go to Roadway Green, you must see the houses that we are building for the farm workers there. So these are the few, but we can give you more. So we want members of parliament, we want members of this parliament, when it is their constituency, they must visit those areas and they must clap hands for these women, they are benefiting. Chairperson.
Order, honorable members, order.
Chairperson, I really want to appreciate whatever she said because she has been crying, but her responsibility is to support and take information to us as her government to support those people.
Honorable Deputy Minister, the honorable member Mitilian is on his feet.
I'm not yet to him, it's just taking...
Yeah, we have to check as to what is it that he's going to say. Honorable Mitilian, are you rising on a point of order?
Yes.
What is your point of order?
I want to know if the minister is referring to honorable that she was crying. I just want to check if was she crying now? Is she referring to you as, crying? Are you referring to her?
Okay.
Was she crying?
We heard you, Honorable Mitileni. Take your seat. Take your seat, Honorable Mitileni.
Yeah.
Take your seat.
No, she was.
Finish off.
She was.
Honorable
If
Minister.
she was crying about the tractors, she was crying. Chairperson, We just want to appreciate the Honorable Member Kaula, what he has raised. But, you know, it's just indicated that it is the manner in which they've lost that province as IFP. Because he does not understand. He does not understand the powers of secretary. In fact, in the ANC, secretaries are CFO, are CEOs of the party. Therefore, if you regard them as corrupt people, it is yours. You have lost power in that province just because of your mentality.
Let us allow the Honorable Kaula to say whatever he wants to say. Why are you on your feet, Honorable Kaula?
Honorable House Chairperson, I'm on my feet on a point of order.
What is your point of order, Honorable Member?
The Honorable Deputy Minister is terribly misquoting and misleading. Terribly misquoting me. Actually, the fact of the matter is she's twisting the words I said. You can go to Hansard and check.
The Honorable Kaola, you'll have your time to come to the podium and respond. Now it is the time for the Honorable Minister. And I am going to give you 2 minutes to round off, Honorable Minister.
Chairperson, well, I just want to speak Siswati in this one. Angavisisi kahle ukuthi uthini umnumzane Mtileni. Umnumzane Mtileni uma afuna kusoma inkosikazi yemnumzane, not in this podium. Mnumzane Mtileni uma kufanele a represent bafati be EFF. He's supposed to speak here about the women in the EFF, not the wife of another man.
Continue, Deputy Minister. Honorable Mitilen.
Yes, this man cannot be such unruly because he has been speaking about the wife of another man. Where is your wife? Uthini unkosikazi wakho uma ukhuluma ngomfazi wenye indoda? Yeah,
the Honorable Minister.
If ever you didn't have a speech, you're supposed to be saying how much you love your wife. That will be enough. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Your time has expired now. Thank you very much. She has finished. She has finished, Honorable Mitileni. Take your seat. Take your seat. Take your seat. We want to continue with the list. Thank you very much for understanding. Take your seat, Honorable Mitilen. Take your seat. Take your seat, Honorable Mitilen. Take your seat, Honorable Mitilen. You know that that is not accepted. We cannot accept you to debate from the floor. Take your seat, please. Honorable Mitilen, take your seat. Take your seat, Honorable Mitilen. Take your seat. Take your seat. Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, you cannot behave like the Honorable Member Mitilen. Honorable members. Honorable Mitilen, I gave you your time to debate. EFF does not have 10 minutes. It has got 6 minutes. Take your seat, Honorable. Can I then request you to go out, Honorable Mitilen? Because you are not ready to listen to us. Honorable Mitilen, go out. Go out, Honorable Mitilen. No, Honorable Mitilen is not ready to listen. Please take. No, I have to take a ruling. There's a ruling that I must read. Honorable Mitilen. Honorable members. Honorable members, there is a ruling. There is a ruling that I have to go through it now. And I would want the Honorable Member Mitilen to take his seat. Take your seat, Honorable Mitilen. There is a ruling. Can I request Honorable Hoshi, don't be tempted to act like the Honorable Mitilen. Leave him alone. Will you please take your seat? So for the last time, Honorable Mitilen, if you are not ready to listen to me, can I ask the Sergeant at Arms to take Honorable Mitilen out? Please take Honorable Mitilen out. We cannot allow Mitilen to act like this. You are totally out of order. You are totally out of order. You cannot respond from the floor. You can't do that. Just go out, leave us alone. I want to conclude. Go out, Honorable Mitilen. Take him out. No, go out, Honorable Mitilen. Honorable Mitilen, leave the house. Please, just go and ask the assistant outside so that they come and help you to take the Honorable Mitilen out. Sergeant at Arms, he is wasting our time. Please. We are waiting for the Sergeant at Arms at this moment to do his work. Go out, Honorable Mitilen. Okay, order, honorable members. Honorable members, I would like to make a ruling on a point of order raised on the 13th of August, 2015 by the Honorable Mpambo Shibukwana, alleging that the Minister in the Presidency of Women said the Honorable Michalakis is sexist. As I did not hear what was said, I have since consulted Hansard and I would like to rule as follows. During the sitting, Honorable Mpambo Shibukwana rose on a point of order, alleging that, I quote, "It is unparliamentary for the minister to call the Honorable Michalakis sexist. I find it very strange that in this month of August, when we are talking about non-sexism, the minister would say from a woman's point of view that he is sexist. She said it loudly, and everybody must have heard it. At this point, I would ask the minister to withdraw. We who think, this is what the minister has said, we who think, who are matured, who understand, and do not look at things from a sexist point of view, need to say that the question refers to those who withdraw their cases. This is what we have seen in Hansard. According to unrevised Hansard, there is no indication that the minister referred to a specific member as sexist. If a reference was made to the specific member of this House as sexist, that would render the remarks unparliamentary as ruled previously, because they would reflect on the integrity and dignity of the honorable member. In terms of Rule 53B of the NCOP rules, a member may speak in the council on a point of order. However, this rule does not permit members to rise on spurious points of order and thus interrupt speakers on the floor. I have noticed that points of order were being raised as a response to what the speaker was saying or when members held a different view to the speaker. In view of this, the statement in question does not cast aspersions on the character of a specific member of this House. It was just a statement that was made by the minister in the context of responding to a supplementary question. Honorable members, I also want to request the members to go and check rule number 36 and rule number 45, please. Next time when you come to this House, you must make sure that you go through these rules and then you acquaint yourself with these rules. Now we have come to the end of the business of the day, and this House is adjourned. The members are requested to remain standing until the procession leaves the house.